Jane Douglas, and I am your moderator for the town of Alton. I welcome you to the first deliberative session of your 2020 town meeting. The second session will be held in conjunction with the town elections at Catherine Drixel Church, located on Route 28 North on March 10th. At that time, we will vote upon the warrant articles that we are today here to discuss. Our job today is to prepare these warrant articles into their final form for the ballot. Before I begin, all those who are not registered voters of Alton, would you please rise? Well, raise your hand. We have a lot of people standing. Non-residents of Alton. Okay, thank you, and welcome. Please rise and join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag of our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I now declare the deliberative session of our 2020 annual meeting officially opened. Let's meet our head table. On my left and your right are the following Alton Town Selectmen and women who will be introduced by Mr. Reuben Wentworth, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
To my left is Virgil McDonald. After that is Sidney Shapley, Bill Whitman, and Paul Rochelle. And Laura, down at the end, is our finance officer. And Liz Dion, town administrator, and Jim Sesso, town attorney.
On my right and your left are the following Alton Budget Committee members who will be introduced by Mr. Patrick O'Brien, Chairman of the Budget Committee.
Good evening. My name is Patrick O'Brien. To my right and your left is Member Bob Holt, Member Peter Levitt, and Member John Markland. Not here tonight are members Elizabeth Varney, David Hershey, and our recording secretary that's usually with us is Carolyn Sheff.
And to my right is our town clerk, Lisa Noyce, and her assistant, Jen Collins. The moderator rules for the meeting are: 1, the moderator will not follow Robert's rules. The moderator will use the following general rules of procedure, whose main purpose is to keep the meeting moving and not get bogged down in procedural quagmires. By majority vote, the voters can overrule any decision the moderator makes and any rule that the moderator establishes. A voter can raise such a request as a point of order. The moderator will take articles in the order that they appear on the warrant unless this body votes otherwise. After an article is read, a motion must be made and seconded prior to any discussion on the article. The names of those making and seconding the motion will be required. The moderator will then ask for someone to speak in favor of the article and then open the discussion for both pro and con. The moderator will only allow one motion on the floor at a time, with the exception of points of order, a motion to amend the pending article by the person who has the floor, or a motion to move the question by a person who has the floor. No one may speak unless they are recognized by the moderator and have the floor, with the exception of points of order. Everyone who speaks must use the microphones. Please start by stating your name. Be aware that the meeting may be videotaped for future replay. All amendments to a motion must be in writing. A motion to move the question, limit debate, and require a 2/3 vote. Non-voters of the town of Alton may not speak at the meeting without the permission of the voters, except the moderator will allow non-resident town officials and consultants or experts who are here to provide information about an article to speak. All speakers must be courteous. The moderator will not allow personal attacks on any individual, town employee, elected official, or members of any town board or committee. Personal attacks include but are not limited to statements of incompetency, illegal behavior, lack of knowledge, or violation of the law. The moderator will not allow inappropriate language such as swearing, cursing, or offensive slang words attacking a person's race, gender, or religious affiliation. If anyone makes a personal attack or uses inappropriate language, they will be ruled out of order. If you are out of order, you will be warned once to cease. If you persist, you will be ruled out of order a second time, and you will then be asked to leave the building. If you refuse to leave the building, you will be assisted by the building police officer in attendance. All questions and comments should be addressed to the moderator. The moderator will choose who responds to the questions. With the exception of initial presentations on articles, which the moderator requests are limited to 10 minutes, all speakers in debate will be limited to 3 minutes. Each speaker may only speak once until everyone has spoken. Voting will be done by a show of cards. If, in the opinion of the moderator, the result is inconclusive, a standing vote will be taken. A secret ballot will be used when required by statute or when requested by 5 voters present at this meeting during or at the end of debate on an article. A motion to reconsider may be made after a vote has been taken and must be made by someone who voted with the prevailing side. A motion to restrict reconsideration of article may be made after a vote has been taken. I'm going to read you the 2020 warrant. You are hereby notified to meet at the Prospect Mountain High School on Tuesday, the 4th day of February in the year of 2020, beginning at 6 p.m. in the evening for the purpose of deliberating upon the following warrant articles and the town elections to approve the warrant articles by ballot vote, which will be held on March 10th, 2020 at St. Catherine Drexel Church, the lower level, 40 Hidden Spring Road from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Article 1, to choose all necessary town offices for which there are vacancies for such terms as may be permitted by law, and to elect 2 selectmen for 3 years, 1 trustee of the trust fund for 3 years, 1 trustee of the trust funds for 2 years, 2 library trustees for 3 years, 1 library trustee for 2 years, 1 moderator for 2 years, 1 budget committee member for 3 years, 2 planning board members for 3 years, 1 supervisor of the checklist for 6 years, 2 zoning board members for 3 years, and 1 zoning board member for 2 years. So let's get on to the work. We will be going to Article 12 as 2 through 11 are zoning, and they've already been out for public input and discussion, and that is how they will be placed on the warrant. So there's no discussion on those articles this evening. Article 12. Benefit Pay Expendable Trust Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be added to the Benefit Pay Expendable Trust Fund previously established in 2001. Said funds are recommended by the town auditors to be used to pay for benefits accrued by town employees and redeemed when they leave employment with the town of Alton, in accordance with the town personnel policy. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote is required. Who moves the motion?
I do, Madam.
Reuben Wentworth. Who seconds the motion?
Second it.
Virgil McDonald. Who wishes to speak to the article?
The moderator, I will. This is something that goes in every year. Right now in that fund, there's only $5,000 left from other employees leaving through last year. So this is put in every year because a lot of town employees who have spent their lifetime working for us have accrued time that we need to pay for when they leave for retirement.
Is there any discussion on the article? Hearing none and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 13.
So moved.
Reuben Wentworth. Who seconds it? Virgil McDonald. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article number 13, please raise your cards. All those opposed?
12.
Wow. Article
Article
12.
12.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Article 12 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Very sorry. Article 13, operating budget. Shall the town raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant, or is amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $8,267,897. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $8,090,865, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Board of Selectmen or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. This article does not include special or individual articles addressed. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 5-1. A majority vote is required. Who moves the motion? Virgil McDonald. Who seconds it? Sidney Shapley. Who will speak to it?
Madam Chairman, I will. Madam Moderator. This is the first year I can say in a long time, being a selectman for a combined 11 years, that the Budget Committee and the selectmen came to a very close operating budget from both committees. They believe the selectmen's budget was $9,000 difference, but the selectmen chose not to request that extra $9,000 because we feel we can work within this budget. Our department heads this year had a task to come in under 5%. 99% of them did. One department didn't, which was a little over, but that was due to the infrastructure of the water department. So all department heads should be congratulated for the budget they're presenting, and the selectmen are presenting to the town tonight because they did work diligently and hard for this budget and have it passed by both departments, Budget Committee and selectmen.
Is there any discussion on Article 13?
Hi, Joe Gray from Linwood Drive. I'm concerned about highway budget. Is there money in there to fix some of the roads? Because we have a horrible, horrible condition on Linwood Drive and Stockbridge Corner Road recently. It's a icing up condition and nobody seems to take care of it. And nobody seems to take care of the roads when you call the highway department. I hear there's no funds. I heard that they didn't have a backhoe or something, that there was a problem with that. I'm just concerned that we don't have enough money in our budget for highway funds or for funds to fix the roads that are in horrible condition.
There is money in the highway department to maintain our roads for the maintenance of them. Last year, there was no reconstruction money approved last year's town meeting. The warrant article is in there this year for $950,000 to be approved, hopefully at the ballot. Last year, there was a problem with the backhoe. We lost the engine in it. By the time we were able to get the replacement in here, it took almost 6 months to get the replacement backhoe. So there was a time we were out of the backhoe, yes. But the crews this summer before the backhoe came in was out diligently ditching most of the roads. I believe Mr. Roberts could attest they probably got about 3/4 of the town done ditching. That is one thing that maybe had lacked in the last few years, but they are diligent out there working, trying to bring the roads up. Unfortunately, $950,000 only goes so far when they're reconstructing roads.
Mr. Roberts in 2006 stated that Linwood Drive was in horrible condition. That was I read from an article based on the lawsuit or something back then. Nothing's been done with Linwood Drive since 2006. It is now 2020. I highly wish that the council or would address that fact. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on Article 13?
Again, I'd like to ask this year the wages for the department heads. They weren't included in the budget again this year, the sheets.
Do we have that?
Yes, we do, Madam Moderator. Laura? Would you like those read out loud, sir?
That's, unless you
Oh,
can
I didn't know-
communicate mind-wise.
Well, no, I didn't know if you wanted a copy. I'd have to make a copy. Town administrator, $97,786. Finance manager, $58,510. Assessor, $75,068. Building inspector, $64,954. Fire chief, $82,893. Highway agent, $91,919. Information technology, $67,430. Parks and Rec director, $62,714. Town planner, $68,648. Police chief, $103,007. Solid waste director, $61,594. Town clerk, $66,496. And water superintendent, $79,179.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on Article 13? Hearing none and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 13. Sidney Shapley, who seconds it? Mr. Whitman. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article number 13, raise your cards, please.
Robin, you never had a vote for the article. Were you going to do a vote and see if it was approved? Like the first article?
Reconsider.
All you asked for was reconsideration. Okay.
I'm sorry, could we raise our cards again for those in favor of restricting reconsideration for Article 13? Thank you. All those opposed? Article 13 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 14, New Riverside Cemetery Engineering. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the purpose of engineering needed at the New Riverside Cemetery in order to lay out all required work that needs to be done to the site for expansion and usage, such as utility corridor for all utilities needed on the site, interior travelways, roads, layout of lots, and more. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7-6 and will not lapse until the engineering project is completed or by December 31st, 2024, whichever is sooner. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote will be required. Who moves the motion? Ms. Shapley. Who seconds it? Mr. Whitman. Who will speak to it? Mr. McDonald.
This article is so we can lay out the new part of Riverside Cemetery, to plot the electric lines and the water corridor going into it, have all the grave sites all mapped out, and for the drainage. That way we can start selling lots in there.
Is there any discussion on Article 14? Hearing none and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 14. Mr. McDonald, second. Ms. Shapley. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 14, please raise your cards. Thank you. Opposed? Article 14 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 15, Fire Department Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be added to the Fire Department Equipment Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 1973. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee, majority vote is required. Is there any discussion on Article 15? Oh, no. Who moves the motion? Mr. Whitman. Who seconds it? Mr. La Rochelle. Who will speak to it? Ms. Shapley.
This is part of our ongoing CIP program. The fire department worked closely with the CIP committee to determine what the schedule for CIP would be. There is currently a balance in this capital reserve of $496,741.94, and I will defer specific questions to the fire chief.
Is there any discussion on Article 15?
The next article is for $100,000 to be the ladder truck. Could this $100,000 be used toward that ladder truck?
Is the fire chief here? There he is.
Jim Baldwin, Fire Chief. The next article regarding the fire truck, we're looking for matching funds to go with a grant. We're applying for a grant. We're asking for $750,000 from the feds. The cost of a ladder truck right now is $1.1 million. So we're going to have a little bit of a deficit there. The money going into the capital reserve and then the money coming from the fund balance, if that second article passes and if we get the grant, we will still have another $150,000 deficit. So we're going to need all that money.
Okay, so is there any further discussion on Article 15?
So I guess that the $100,000 could be used to make up the difference if Article 16 isn't enough money. I take it from what I just heard, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on Article number 15? Hearing none and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 15. Mr. Whitman, who seconds it? Mr. La Rochelle. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 15, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 15 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 16, Fire Department Ladder Truck, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be used toward the purchase of a fire ladder truck. Said funds to come from undesignated fund balance, which will not have an impact on tax rate. This special article is contingent upon receiving the award of a FEMA grant. Should the grant funding not be received, this article is null and void. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0, recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Who moves the motion? Mr. La Rochelle. Who seconds it? Mr. Wentworth. Who will speak to it? Ms. Shapley.
So as the chief just explained, this is a matching grant article. We have the opportunity to raise as much as $750,000 through a FEMA grant. Our current ladder truck is more than 30 years old and is out of service at this time. We have over 40 buildings in town that are more than 3 stories and require such a ladder truck. In addition to that, we have many buildings that are on a steep incline where it's not the height that we need, but it's the reach that we need. Right now, when we have a fire in town that requires a ladder truck, we are dependent on mutual aid for that to happen. The chief has had discussions with FEMA regarding the severity of the situation that we have in town and our lack of a ladder truck. And based on the feedback we have received, it seems that we would be in very good position to actually receive these funds. As the article is written, should this fail, or should our grant application not be honored, then this would be a null and void.
Is there any discussion on Article 16?
Oh, sorry, Lauren Carr. Okay, this is why I was interested in this, because you're going to raise the fund from undesignated fund balance. So why not put that money so we have it already in this fund? In other words, why are you have this wording, this special article is contingent upon receiving the award? Why wouldn't we put this money in anyway? I mean, if we don't have a ladder truck right now, shouldn't we be putting money into that?
That's what the CIP article that we just voted on, Article 15, is doing. It's $100,000 towards that.
Yeah.
If we receive the grant, and
Yeah.
Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, we will need the 350 plus the 250, and then this will go to replenish the warrant article or the capital reserve fund, and I believe we'll still have a balance of about $150,000.
But if we don't get the grant, then we're going to be short $100,000. I guess what I'm asking is, I'm tempted to put an amendment and cut that whole wording about the reward of the grant. Why aren't we putting money away, period, out of the undesignated fund, so we'll have this money to pay for the ladder truck? Right now, the way this is worded, if we don't get the funds, we're going to have to make the $100,000 up again. Why aren't we doing it now if we've got enough money in the unspent funds?
If this article fails, we cannot, and if this article fails,
Yeah.
and FEMA did come through with the ladder truck, we could not buy it. Because this article, if it fails as is, the town cannot purchase the ladder truck.
Okay, if we cut out the wording about contingent upon the award, the grant, then we will raise $100,000 from the undesignated fund balance. That money will be available to buy a fire truck next year. This way, if you don't get the fund, you're not going to have the money, correct?
It'll stay in the
It will stay
Right.
in the undesignated fund, yes.
Well, if we need a ladder truck, I don't understand why we're not putting it away now.
Well,
That's part of CIP is to put money away into the equipment fund.
This
But you're
is.
still short. He just said we're short money. Okay, I'm going to make an amendment.
And we are. And this warrant article has come before the people in numerous shapes and form over a number of years, and it's been consistently voted down. We are trying to find a more creative way to fund this, hence the chief going and finding this potential grant for $750,000. We'll still be short $750,000 if we don't receive the grant. And we're not confident that we would receive $200,000 to the fire department equipment fund.
I'm going to make an amendment that we strike out the wording, this special article is contingent upon receiving the award of the FEMA grant. Should the grant funding not be received, this article is null and void. I think we should raise it now.
The only thing I can say to you, Lauren, when you do that, you put that $100,000, it goes into the capital reserve fund. Then the selectmen or agents to expend if something else comes up in the meantime that needs to replace that $100,000 could be used for something else within the fire department. Okay? I just wanted to make that clear, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. This will change basically the subject of what this article was written about. So it really, we cannot not do that. It would be illegal to the article.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Andy McLeod. On the same subject, do I understand that the $750,000 grant is a maximum we can get, and it's possible we can get part of that? not all of it?
Correct.
What's the actions if we get, say, $622,000?
Chief?
I guess my point is, is the $100,000 Article 16 null and void if we get less than $750,000?
Well, I think he has more of a legal question. The
Right.
question I can answer, if it's not 750,000, does that become void? I don't know the answer to that.
Would the chief, the grant you filled out for was for 750.
We're asking for
Do they
750,000.
normally award lower amounts than what you asked for?
They can. They
They
have
can.
in the past. Usually that's based on what they feel the market price for the vehicle is. So it wouldn't be like 300,000. They would be maybe 700,000 rather than 750, but I can't really tell you what they're going to come back with.
In the fire department capital reserve, right now for equipment,
496.
496. With the 100,000 on the article before would bring it up to 525. We had expenses, so bring it up to 525, 814. So if you had another 100,000, you're only going to be 600. If they gave us 300,000, you'd be right at the breaking point of putting a zero amount in that account.
So my concern, so right now we're raising $200,000 to drop into this the equipment, fire department equipment account, to all intents and purposes, if we also get the 750,000. If we don't get the 750,000, we're dropping just 100,000 into there, and then we'll be up at 525 in there. How much is the town selectmen willing to use from this account to cover a partial loan?
I don't know that we can answer that for a board that's not been elected.
Okay. If FEMA gives us a partial grant and there's just flat out not enough money to buy a truck, do we have to give the grant back? Or can we hold it for a certain amount of time until more funds can be raised?
Chief?
The money would have to be expended within the year. So if within that year we're able to come up with the rest of the money, then we'd be able to spend it. If we can't spend it within the year, we have to give it back.
Or we would have to call a special meeting and bring it in front of the people.
That's what okay. Thank you. That's where I wanted to be.
One thing would be to raise.
Is there any other discussion?
If,
Ms. Shapley?
just a thought, if people are concerned that we could receive less than that amount, we could not put a cap on what we could take from the undesignated fund balance. Right now, we're capping it at 350,000. We could simply state that if we receive funds from the grant, that we can take the difference from the undesignated fund balance. That would be a way to ensure that we don't lose, say, $500,000 grant that we may not have the opportunity to get again.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 16. Buddy? I'll take a motion. Anyone want to make a motion? Mr. Markland, who seconds it? You guys can help me out too. Mr. McDonald. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article number 16, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? Article 16 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 17, Grounds and Maintenance Vehicle and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $23,000 to be added to the Grounds and Maintenance Vehicle and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 2019. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1, recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Who moves the motion? Mr. Wentworth. Who seconds it? Mr. McDonald. Who will speak to it? Mr. Whitman.
The funds would be used to purchase replacement vehicles. Can they hear me? Yeah. The funds would be used to purchase replacement vehicles when needed for the Grounds and Maintenance Department. They maintain 38 town properties. They're looking to replace the current F-350 2008 pickup truck, which has over 109,000 on it, in 2020 with a similar vehicle for approximately $45,000. And the current balance is $22,500.
Is there any discussion on Article 17? Hearing none and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 17. Mr. Wentworth, who will second that? Mr. McDonald. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 17, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 17 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 18, Highway Department Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $350,000 to be added to the Highway Department Equipment Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 1981. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Who moves the motion? Mr. McDonald. Who seconds it? Sidney Shapley. Who will speak to it? Virgil McDonald.
This is part of the CIP plan, and we're looking this year to replace the six-wheeler and a one-ton out of this fund.
Is there any discussion on Article 18? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 18. Mr. McDonald, Mr. Roberts will second that. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 18, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 18 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 19, Highway Road Construction Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $950,000 to be added to the Highway Road Construction Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 1998. Said amount is partially offset by revenues from the Highway Block Grant Fund, estimated to be $201,000. This is an annual appropriation that provides for the reconstruction of existing roadways. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 5-1. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Who moves the motion? Ms. Shapley. Who seconds? Mr. Whitman. Who will speak to it? Mr. McDonald.
This article here is for the rebuilding of our town roads, which we still have a few. But the town crew, last year I spoke against this article, but the town crew has done a great job this year doing the maintenance on the roads. We're back to a full crew where now we can still do maintenance and still do the road rebuilding. And I think we should put this article back in.
Is there any discussion on Article 19?
Gray, again, Linwood Drive. I'm all for putting money in, but who decides where it gets spent? And I know that the council does. I've been before you guys for 3 years now, I think, different times to talk about the condition of Linwood Drive and Stockbridge Corner Road. And I just want to make sure that I'm being heard, that there are concerns there. Every time I ask about a list of what roads are going to be taken care of, it's somewhat nebulous. My road never gets listed. Again, Mr. Roberts said in 2006 that it was in tough condition. So please consider that. Thank you.
I got it written down here.
To answer your question, though, just to let you know, the recommendation comes in from the highway agent of roads that need to be done. Then we review them with the Board of Selectmen to see which roads are needs the most work, and that's how it's listed down. Right now, the Board of Selectmen will be looking at between 5 to 6 roads this year. I think that's what came out of our meeting last night. Mr. Roberts, we have to sit down and discuss them. One road was approved for paving last year by the taxpayers, but we had no money to pave it. So that's one road we have to take under consideration because the townsfolk told us last year they wanted Hayes Road paved.
Did you have another question?
Sorry. Where do I get the list of roads that are on there?
We'll be meeting on Monday night on discussing road reconstruction with Mr. Roberts before he goes out for surgery on his knees. So Monday night we'll be having a workshop and we're invited to come to at 6 o'clock at Town Hall.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, sir.
My name is Joseph Snow. I live on Hayes Road. There's been some complaints that Hayes Road gets too muddy in the winter and in the early spring. I want to take it further. I walk that road every day, and the slopes on Hayes Road freeze and become very slippery. And I suggest the neighbors want to pave the road. I suggest that the top of the hills be dug out and proper stone put in. They call it 4-inch minus. I've done it on my driveway myself, and it works. And then paved. I suggest the top of the hill be dug down and dug back, drainage stone put in, and then the slope reduced thereby, and then the road paved. Right now, the slopes are, in the winter time, the dirt, the gravel accumulates ice and it's slippery. School bus goes through there every morning. That's it.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Norby, and I've been a taxpayer and a resident for 20 years. And I'd like to speak to this first to compliment, as you did as we started this discussion, what the Highway Department has done. I think they do a tremendous job with the manpower that they have, and they're trying the best they can to maintain the roads in our town. One of the issues, as you've also pointed out, is the need for reconstruction of a number of roads. And I'm speaking specifically of Roberts Cove Road. There are a number of roads off that. And as the gentleman just mentioned, there are other issues. Sometimes it's, I'm driving on the left-hand side of a road. I should be driving on the right-hand side down by Roberts Cove Basin because it's all icy. I cannot go on the correct side of the road. Kind of look like I'm maybe having too much to drink. But the other issue, too, is that there are some 90 people who have signed a petition asking if Roberts Cove Road could be on this list because it is a road that receives, I know it's a secondary road, but it receives a lot of traffic, and including school buses. And I certainly commend the gentleman from Linwood Road. It sounded like he was talking about Roberts Cove Road as well. So thank you to the Highway Department, and whatever you can do to do the reconstruction, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rosemary Sullivan. I live on Orchard Lane. I just want to reiterate what Mrs. Norby has just said, and I'd like to thank the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen for recognizing the needs that have come forth through Mr. Roberts, and I too would hope that Roberts Cove Road is on this list. Thank you.
Sir?
To try the other side microphone for a change of pace. My name is Richard Shea. Believe it or not, I live on Roberts Cove Road, and hence I am speaking strongly in favor of this article. From what I can tell, the town has always in the past appropriated some amount of money each year for road reconstruction and upgrade. For some reason, that was turned down by the voters this past year, which leaves us, I guess, a little further behind than we had been. And chances are we've been behind for a while because road maintenance, any kind of maintenance, always takes a second place on most town budgets. I think Roberts Cove Road in particular is in need of attention. The surface water runoff at the south end of it is substantial, and the highway people have to sand almost continuously in order to keep things halfway safe. And sometimes 10 minutes after they drive by, the water rushes down the hill, washes away their efforts, and we're back to an unsafe condition. We also have some pretty good-sized open drainage areas, some of which are 4 or 5 feet deep, that have the potential for an accident or safety issue, particularly with kids. I considered and was recommended to me I might offer an amendment to increase this amount, but based on what happened last year, I'm afraid if we ask for too much, we might get nothing. So, but I very definitely want to express my support for this in its present form, and to thank the Board of Selectmen and highway people who are going to put together a more detailed schedule with a specific list of roads and hopefully dates and approximate costs with a workshop that I believe is on this coming Monday evening. I hope people will show up and express their support, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator?
Yes.
After this young lady, can I ask for a 5-minute recess to confer with my board?
Sure.
Hi, my name's Michelle Glidden, and about 3 to 4 years ago, I did go to Miss Dion and I asked her about Linwood Drive. She told me that we needed to get a petition signed by every resident and that they would put us on the 2-year list. I did get that petition, I did send it in, and nothing has ever been done since. Our road is falling apart, literally falling apart. When they plow, pieces and chunks of the road are coming up with the plow. We have waterfalls going down the hill, coming up the road, makes it very unsafe in a very bad rainstorm. The road is literally falling apart. We really need consideration on that road.
Okay, thank you. 1 second.
Yes.
At this point, the selectmen are asking for a 5-minute recess so they can confer about this problem. So we will take 5 minutes, let them discuss, and we will be back here in 5 minutes.
One's very small, one is very large at that curve that people are talking about. And the road has gotten worse and worse and worse. And it is dangerous. And they came and they dug the trenches on the side. But I can tell you, when the snow piles up in those trenches, you have no idea if your car gets pulled over to the side, that you're not going to end up in one of them. Because the snow isn't that heavy to hold. I drive a truck. So I'm asking, and I've asked before, and it keeps saying, next year, next year, next year, we're talking about it. But there's an awful lot of us who would really like some consideration on that road. And when the tax bills come in, we're all there paying our taxes, but we'd like some help. And it is extremely dangerous. Thank you.
Ruben is going to address the article. Yeah.
Thank you, folks, and thanks for your patience for that 5-minute recess to confer with my board. Earlier today, I asked Laura Parker, the finance officer, to do some numbers up for me. In 2019, operating budget in warrant articles, there was a total of $13,868,592. That's with everything that passed. So we came down to, and after the highway block grant came in, it came down to $13,670,592. As you also noticed this year, you also had a tax, the tax rate went down quite a bit because revenues were up quite a bit in the way we were worked on the default budget. This year in 2020, don't take it that I'm an advocate for spending tons of dollars, but we have been getting inundated with road reconstruction. I know Mr. Robert has all he can do with the $950,000 to get all the roads done. He has to get done. But this year, if everything passes as is the way it's written in the deliberative session tonight at the ballot in March, you're looking at a balance of $10,280,468. If you take out the highway block grant like we did last year, the fund balance that we were going to be using for the fire truck, the master plan, and also one article for the beers, that's $435,500 that would be coming out of the undesignated fund balance, leaving a balance for this year's budget of $9,844,968, almost $4 million less than last year. Reason being there's such a decrease this year is because this is our third year of our capital improvements program. Some of you folks remember from the last 3 years we started capital improvements up. We had stated the first 2 years would be the most expensive years, then it would start evening itself out. So all I'm saying is there's a lot of folks here tonight that want roads done. This would be your time to amend this warrant article if you wanted to add more money in because you are almost $4 million less than you were last year in the budget. So this way your tax rate would even come down more this year if we live in a perfect world and all the revenues stayed the same. But I had this done up today just to answer a question in case somebody asked me how much the overall budget, all the warrant articles approved, what it would cost the town. Mr. Roberts, even if you add more money to it, can't guarantee he would get every road done that needs to be done. Possibly some would have to go out to private. The reason the highway department does our road reconstruction is because for a private company, they spend about $1 million a mile right now. With his crew doing it, they probably get 1.75 miles done. But I wanted to let you know where the bottom line stood at this point. Right now, our budget is about $4 million less than last year. Thank you.
This gentleman.
Yes, my name is Ralph Paolo. I live on Hayes Road in Alton. Ruben, you answered part of my question. I was wondering if, and I am for the $950,000 and more probably, I was wondering if it was going to go out for competitive bid, at least 3 bids, on all the road reconstruction in Alton as of today.
Right now, it would be, the way the Board of Selectmen feels, it would probably be the Highway Department doing the road reconstruction. Because we can get more miles.
Would it not be beneficial to at least advertise for bids to see if that number is correct?
It wouldn't. I'll let Ken, I'll refer to Ken here in a minute. But the other thing, if we go out to bid, we'd have to have total engineers' designs on all the roads, which that will end up taking, he could probably tell you better the estimate of that cost, but there would be an added cost in there because Mr. Roberts does do a lot of engineering until it comes to wetlands areas, bridges, and things of that nature.
And I happen to live on the Brook, Beaver Brook, and I've seen the result of that engineering. There is a retention pond right on the brook that gave way 1 year after being built. All right? We've already expended money to dig out Beaver Brook, the pond that used to be there. It's the fire pond. It is full now because, and if you wish to come down, I'll show you. The retention pond is given away. It's been that way for years. It filled the brook back in already. You can watch the water run down with the silt into the brook. My house is directly on the brook. I have an island where the brook used to be, in the middle of the brook now, of road sand. That's supposed to be caught in the retention pond. The retention pond has given away. The brook is full. That brook used to be, when I first moved there 33 years ago, and the bridge was a granite bridge and since has been reconstructed. That brook was between 7 and 8 feet deep. Today, it's not even a foot deep. It's no longer a fire retention pond. It's full of road sand. So I've seen the engineering that you talk about, Ruben. And maybe we should invest in some professional engineering. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Roberts? Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Moderator.
I feel she was standing there first.
Kelly Sullivan. I happen to live on a state road, but I'm sitting here listening to my fellow community members, and there's an awful lot of discussion about road improvement. It was turned down last year, which sets us back a little bit. And after listening to Ruben explain the numbers and having all that extra money, I was just curious as to who on the budget committee voted against this proposal for this year. Thank you. So that would be Mr. Holt. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Just to address a couple of concerns, I think the selectmen have a report on Hayes Road that they just sent from our wetland scientist on what exactly happened there. And I'm not going to sit here and go through the whole thing. What I am going to say is I really appreciate all the support for road reconstruction coming out. I've said before, I can do 90%. There's 10% that I can't do, and we rely on engineers. I'll give you a good example. Roberts Cove is going to be part of it. Basically, from the beginning on the first entrance, all the way up over the ledge piece. The ledge is going to be an issue. You talk about the deep ditch lines. Well, the selectmen have taken proactive in this whole thing about adding catch basins, putting underground drainage in, catching as much sand as possible that goes onto the roadways. Cyanobacteria is a big thing that's floating throughout everywhere. We've got a big thing going on in Mirror-Meeting Marsh right now that could be in the millions and millions of dollars because of that. If you go look at Trash Side, we added catch basins. You go look at Gilman's Corner Road, we added catch basins. Every place that we go now, we try to close those ditch lines down and add catch basins so we can trap all that sand. This town uses close to 6,000 yards of sand a year. Sooner or later, they're going to require us to put it down and then record it coming back up. This is the way we've addressed it. You put that closed drainage system in, it goes into culverts, they get pumped every year, goes into the catch basins, we pump it every year. You reduce that issue about those deep ditch lines and get them out of the way. They are a problem. I agree, 100%. But we need to get back into the road reconstruction as far as raising it this year. I wish I'd say yes, but you know, I've been doing this for 24 years. I believe in little steps. I'd really like to see the road reconstruction pass at $950,000 and would like to see the townspeople come back in next year and maybe add money to it because of all the concerns that were brought up here tonight. And there is a lot of concerns. You know, there's a lot of roads to do. When I first started this, we were 25 years behind schedule. And the highway department took it over. We save approximately $2 million a year in road building. Now, we're still 15 years behind the schedule. And you hear it from the people that got up. Linwood, Stockbridge. Some of the roads they originally built need to be built again. You know, we're already at 15 and 18 years on roads that are built. Once you build them, 15, 18 years later, you're building them again. And these are not cheap roads. We've got almost 3 miles of road on Roberts Cove Road. Right now, the average, according to, and I talked to Northeast Earth, and he said right now the average road is $1.2 million a mile when it's contracted out. That's the whole engineering and everything. We're raising $950,000. That's less than a mile road if we engineer it. So some work would be done by the highway department. We've done so many over the years that some work is going to have to be bid out. We're going to have to bring in engineers to do that. You know, we're talking about that beginning all the way up to the campground on Roberts Cove Road. That's all ledge. That's going to take engineering. It's going to take blasting. It's blasting surveys. There's a lot of money involved in that one. But for the rest of the road, we can probably redo it. But this time we go in and we redrew it the way it should be done. You know, when it was done last time, they reserved a lot of the trees and stuff like that. We're not going to do that. We're going to cut back where it's needed. We're not going to cut back in other places. We're going to put a lot of underground drainage in We're going to get rid of a lot of the ditch lines, and we're going to trap as much sand as possible. This proactive thing has come out over the years. Now we see it all happening. I mean, I urge you, and I see a lot of positive support here tonight, try to get your friends, neighbors, everything to vote for this $950,000, and then next year we'll take a good look at increasing this in the line then. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on this?
My name is Norman on Hopewell Road off of Roberts Cove Road. As a homeowner in one of the many roads off of Roberts Cove Road, private roads, all very high assessed properties, appropriate taxes. Well, I find it confusing or why we must rely on a warrant article to repair or reconstruct Roberts Cove Road when all of our roads are private. We're paying the fair tax, but yet it can't be handled under. Now, Ruben explained part of that. It was a bit difficult to follow in such a short order, but you have Lakeside, Hopewell Road, Clay Point Road, all of those properties, Cedar Cove, they all contribute and they all depend on and rely on Roberts Cove. But Roberts Cove hasn't been, well, it was capped maybe 5-6 years ago, but it is in pretty bad shape. I find it difficult that why can't it be done under ordinary budget? Why must it rely on a warrant? And I think, I don't know that I speak for all the other property owners, but I think that we shouldn't depend on the warrant or be dependent on the warrant. Thank you.
Madam Moderator, could I answer that question?
Yes.
There has been discussion between the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee over the last 2 years about putting this road reconstruction into the operating budget. So there has been discussion on that, not to rely on a warrant article, sir. So there has been discussion. It is possibly moving forward that way, but I can't guarantee it.
Sir?
David Witterstrom, live on Hayes Road. I've been here since I was a young boy riding horseback, and that road used to be better than it was after the town redid the road. Obviously, the catch basins aren't working. We used to jump off the bridge and there was 6-7 feet of water there. And so obviously the catch basins aren't working. The road is a mud hole, and it just should be considered to be done this year. I don't know what the problem is, but I own a lot below me also, and I had to get a $2,500 permit to put the driveway in because the town had water coming across on that side. They said wetlands. Then I went to Ken. He said, oh, we can't do anything about it. A couple of years later, they redid the road, ran the water all the way across the road. So I spent $2,500 for nothing. I think the road needs to be repaved. This has been going on long enough. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on Article 19?
Madam Moderator?
Yes, sir.
Bob Holt. The question was asked of me, who the Budget Committee member was that voted against this article. I answered it that it was me. I'm not totally against it. The roads have to be fixed. We have a lot of problems in this town with our roads, but there is no program to fix our roads. I've been before the selectmen for about 2 years now with this concern. They've addressed it somewhat, but not to my satisfaction. What we need is a 10-year, 20-year program, funded, roads listed, this year XYZ, next year XYZ. Now when you people come before us, this town, with a road issue, your road, they can tell you it's 2 years down the road on the schedule. And I want them to do it with a funded schedule, 10, 20 years, a bond possible. And that's the way to address your roads, and you won't have to go through this every year, coming up here screaming to the board or to this body about the roads. And I do agree with you, a lot of our roads need a lot of work. I personally, at voting day, I will vote for the $950,000.
Is there any further discussion on Article 19? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 19. Ms. Shapley. Second? Mr. Whitman. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article number 19, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 19 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 20, Highway Sand Shed Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Highway Sand Shed Capital Reserve Fund, as previously established in 2003. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Who makes the motion? Mr. Whitman. Who seconds it? Mr. La Rochelle. Who will speak to it? Mr. McDonald.
This is so we can stockpile winter sand under cover to keep it from inclement weather.
Is there any discussion on Article 20?
Mark Dekoff, isn't it a state requirement that we have this? And how long do we have to do it?
Kenny?
This is
At this point, it's not a state requirement, but it is a cost of about $350,000 to $400,000 to build this. And the real question has come up, and the selectmen talked about it. There's 2 buildings, fire department, highway department, the extra ones. So we put all the money into there, it's still a question mark. Only appropriate $10,000 a year. I can tell you right now that according to this, the sand shed is $50,000 and a $350,000 job.
Not on the front burner.
Is there any other discussion on this article? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 20. Mr. Whitman makes the motion. Who seconds it?
I'll second.
Mr. Levitt will second. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 20, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 20 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 21, Bridge Construction Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Bridge Construction Capital Reserve Fund, as previously established in 1995. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. La Rochelle. Who seconds it? Mr. Wentworth. Who will speak to it? Mr. Wentworth.
Madam Moderator, I'd like to amend this article to read to see if the town will vote to raise an appropriate sum of $150,000 to be added to the bridge construction capital reserve fund as previously established in 1995.
Mr. Wentworth has made a motion for amendment to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $150,000 to be added to the Bridge Construction Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 1995. This is a change from $10,000 to $150,000. Do I have a motion on Mr. Wentworth's amendment? Ms. Shapley. Do I have a second? Mr. McDonald. Would you like to speak to this amendment?
Yes, I would, and after I'm done, I'll defer to Mr. Roberts, too. The state of New Hampshire, and as you folks came in tonight, there's a pamphlet up there on Loon Cove Road over Watson Brook. The state has red tagged that bridge on us now because it's showing serious deterioration at the water level and underneath. The highway agent in town and Board of Selectmen will be asking for highway money to this for the bridge aid. But to ask for bridge aid, which can take up to 7 years to get, we have to show them that we at least have 20% of the cost of what that bridge would cost to replace. So by adding $150,000 to the $125,000 that's in this reserve now, will give us a total of $275,000. 20% estimated cost of this bridge would be around $230,000. That's why we're asking for this money to be put in so we can file for the bridge aid. Mr. Roberts can add a little more to that in case I didn't get it all right.
Mr. Roberts?
We've always in the past tried to keep putting money away in case this happens. The good thing about being in the road reconstruction program, if we have the money to apply for that and we get accepted, is if an emergency happens by chance, we can move up in the program really fast. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, it is kind of hard.
I'll give you an example of why we should be part of the program is Reed Road. Reed Road failed. We got 25 residents on the other side of Reed Road, 25 homes. It failed. It was an unprecedented build in 3 months. They put a temporary bridge in, they built that bridge, we were done in 3 months, unprecedented. Never seen it done before, but it wasn't scheduled for several years later. But because we were part of the Bridge Aid program, we got put in there because it was an emergency. So the good thing about being part of the program, even though this right now is out to 20, 30, 32, 33, 34, if something does seriously happen to that and it fails, then we can address it right away through the Bridge Aid program. We're already part of it. We can be moved up into the system. So it's really a great idea that we get part of that. And again, it's a 20% program. We're putting in 20%, they're putting in 80%. Right now, the average build right now for a bridge, according to the engineer, for bridges in the state of New Hampshire is approximately $1.3 million. In 2029, 2030, 2031, it could be upwards of $1.6 million. We don't know that yet, but the way the cost keeps rising. And again, the last one we built was a little over $750,000. That's why over the past few years, we haven't really escalated putting money in this. We thought we had enough to do it. We didn't know until this report came back, and I talked to him, actually Friday, I had a conversation with him about this. So we know that we need to have the 1.3 million, 20% in order to be part of the program. So I encourage you to vote for this. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on the amendment to Article 21? Yes, sir.
Richard Shea, still on Roberts Cove Road. In my past life in the state of Connecticut, I had some experience with bridge reconstruction and the funding necessary for it. And as everybody knows, you can't do anything with 10 grand, but Ken Roberts is quite correct. The typical amount for a small bridge in our town in Connecticut was around 1.2 to 1.3 million. And we got 80% reimbursement from the federal government, although it took quite a bit of time you had to kind of jump through hoops. But being ready to take advantage of it is a tremendous plus for the town, and I strongly support it. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion to the amendment to 21? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment for Article 21, please raise your cards. Thank you. Opposed? The amendment to Article 21 has passed. Now, is there any further discussion on Article 21? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 21. Ms. Shapley, second?
Second.
Mr. O'Brien. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 21, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 21 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 22, Highway Building Improvements, Repairs, Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be added to the Highway Building Improvements, Repairs, Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 2014. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. A majority vote is required. Who moves the motion? Article. Mr. Wentworth. Who seconds? Mr. McDonald. Who will speak to the article? Mr. McDonald.
This reserve is to save money to repair the building for the highway department, and we've got 39,000 in that capital reserve now. But if the roof or something happens, so we don't get hit with a big bill, that we've got money in that account to repair it.
Is there any discussion on Article 22? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 22. Who? Mr. McDonald, who seconds that? Mr. Markland. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 22, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 22 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 23, Highway Sidewalk Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Highway Sidewalk Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 2007. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. A majority vote is required. Who moves the motion? Article. Ms. Shapley. Who seconds it? Mr. McDonald.
Okay.
Who will speak to it? Mr. McDonald.
These are for improvements in the maintenance of the sidewalks in town and down the bay.
Is there any discussion on Article 23? Mr. Roberts?
Yeah, just to bring this warrant article up, it was just awarded down at the town beach. The sidewalk is being completed to the town beach next year. It's a $21,000 project. Just to tell you that comes out of that capital reserve fund. We try to keep it going in case anything comes up for that. And that is in conjunction with Fish and Game's little proposal of what they're doing down there. We're trying to get ahead of them, put the sidewalk in, which is needed to the town beach, so nobody walks on the roadway when they're going there. So we're just trying to keep replenishing this fund as it goes in case it's needed. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on Article 23? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 23. Mr. O'Brien, a second. Mr. Markland. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 23, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 23 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 24, Alton Bay Community Center Property Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to establish an Alton Bay Community Center Property Capital Reserve Fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of repairs and upgrades to the Alton Bay Community Center and property, and to raise and appropriate the amount of $10,000 to be placed into this fund. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. Wentworth. Who seconds the article? Ms. Shapley. Who will speak to the article? Mr. Whitman.
Okay, the funds would be used to repair the roof, floors, windows, kitchen, bathrooms, decking, boardwalk, painting, and upgrade the electrical and plumbing when needed.
Is there any discussion on Article 24? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 24.
So moved.
Mr. Markland, second. Mr. Levitt. Article 24 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 25, Milfoil Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $23,000 to be added to the Milfoil Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 2010.
You didn't call.
Did I not call a vote on
He's
that?
right. He's right.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
He is right.
All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 24, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 24 is now restricted regarding reconsideration, and thank you very much. Article 25. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $23,000 to be added to the Milfoil Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 2010. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. Whitman. Who seconds it? Mr. La Rochelle. Who will speak to it? Mr. Whitman.
These are the funds used to control the spread of milfoil in our waterways here in town. I think our milfoil committee over the years has done a tremendous job.
Who would like to speak to Article 25?
I just did.
Hi there, Julie Brown from Railroad Avenue. I'm just curious, do you know how much money is currently in the reserve fund for milfoil?
$679.
No, sir.
That's it? So yearly it's being spended out?
$14,841.
That's if this is voted in.
So if this is not voted in, there'll be no milfoil money?
No,
Hang on.
no.
Actually, it's actually.
There's $29,000 right now in that fund.
I see. Thank you for clarifying. And the budget for this coming year is $23,000, or what you think you're going to spend out? What is the budget for 2020 according to the Milfoil Committee?
It's $14,000. Mr. Chairman, it's actually $14,000.
14, excuse me, yes.
$14,840.
My mistake, I read the wrong line. It's $14,000 in the budget right now.
So we are trying to actually establish a reserve fund.
Correct.
That's accurate. Okay, thank you.
Yes, we are actually getting ahead of the milfoil now, so we're not spending the whole fund.
That's what I was looking to hear. Thank you.
We're actually getting ahead of it. They've done a great job of getting control of it.
Is there any other discussion on Article 25? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 25. Mr. Markland, seconded by Mr. Holt. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 25, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 25 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 26, Landfill Closure Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be added to the Landfill Closure Capital Reserve Fund, as previously established in 1994. These funds are being used to deal with the contamination at the landfill and to meet the state regulatory requirements. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. La Rochelle. Who seconds? Mr. Wentworth. Who will speak to it? Wentworth.
This is a yearly appropriation. The last couple of years it has gone down because the fund is getting there, is up higher now. Unfortunately, we haven't had to do as much testing, but the money we still request to be set aside in case the Department of Environmental Services comes in and requires us to drill more wells for water testing if our wells tested inappropriate levels. And also if there's ever a tear or anything in that cap, we'd have the money set aside to fix the tears or anything like that.
Who would like to speak to Article 26? Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 26. Mr. McDonald, second. Mr. La Rochelle. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 26, please raise your cards. Opposed? Article 26 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 27, Solar Array Lease Agreement. To see if the town will authorize the selectmen to enter into a maximum 25-year lease agreement with a company for the purpose of allowing the construction and operation of a solar panel array on top of the town's capped landfill located at 61 Herd Hill Road, map 15, lot 87, and further to negotiate terms and conditions of said lease. This article does not involve any taxation. There will be no impact to the tax rate. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Excuse me, a majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. Wentworth. Who seconds? Mr. McDonald. Who will speak to the article? Mr. La Rochelle.
This will allow the Board of Selectmen to seek out a solar array company and contact with the company for the purpose of constructing and maintaining a solar array on top of the capped landfill site on Herd Hill Road. The contract would be up to a maximum of 25 years with the possibility for renewal. The leasing of the land would involve an annual lease payment paid to the town for the land area being used. A pilot program, in lieu of taxes, would allow the town to tax the solar array company for their equipment on the land. All revenues will be placed into the general fund. The Board of Selectmen feels as though this is a great use for a vacant lot.
Is there any discussion on Article 27?
Yeah, Russ Wilder, just the previous article, 26, and we talked about having some money in case the cap is torn. Hope whenever we negotiate with the solar company, that we watch out that they don't cause that problem and we have to pay for it. So.
Is there any other discussion on Article 27?
Lauren Carr. I'm really opposed to this. That landfill cap is the only one in the state that is inverted. It floats down. When I was on the board, we had discussions about even having to dig it up and send all the material down to Rochester. We had to buy a piece of property behind the Catholic Church because the plume had went out to that property. I don't know why we would want to attempt perhaps have problems with that cap. That cap is a problem anyway. Now I'm going to ask, if I amend this and just say that the town enter in these panels on top of any land instead of on top of the landfill, will that be a legal amendment, or will that one also be discounted?
Jim? I'm sorry. He would like to change it to say any town land versus just the solid waste.
Yes. Not excluded from that? That's very specific.
Yeah, that would be, it's very specific. This is specific to the landfill.
See, we have all that property behind the Catholic Church that doesn't have any problems with this. Instead, we're going on top of a cap that we've had problems with. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's a good idea to get the revenue and the solar, but we have other properties in town that this can be done with. It can start even at the other end of the cap. It doesn't have to be on top of that cap. We have land out that goes out beyond the cap that doesn't have any of these problems.
Do the selectmen want to respond to that?
Except for what the town attorney said is specific to this, so he's stating that we cannot change the wording of it. I understand what you're saying, Loring. I was here originally when that was capped. I was a selectman. We had problems years after that with oozing out because the town does not really know what's underneath there.
Yeah.
And you bring up a good concern, which if we ever went forward with this, the engineers in New Hampshire DES would have to come and inspect that cap before anything could be put on top. Mm-hmm. Nothing will be penetrated, from my understanding, through the cap, but you never know. You're right. It's not a perfect world. But it's something that we'd have to look at, and I'm glad you brought that up tonight because it is something to really consider about.
I think we have there's other options that we could do this and still make the revenue, and it's a good thing for the environment, et cetera, but why step on something that we don't have to?
That's right. Mr. Attorney Sessa would like to respond to one of your questions.
When these leases are negotiated, and a lot of towns do them on their capped landfills, because those capped landfills will never be used for anything else other than something like a solar array. There's extensive requirements for engineering reports. There's a sign-off by DES and other state agencies before it's allowed to happen. There's a liability provision that if they penetrate the cap, they pay for it. We don't pay for it. There's a lot of protections that are built into this. It's all standard in these leases that happen across the state regularly. Basically because the cap landfill will never be used for anything else. Some towns turn them into parks, but the solar arrays seem to be the popular thing to be because that's about the only thing that can go on those things. And they're not constructed so that they're going to penetrate into the caps. So there's a lot of protection that the selectmen are required. They're going to solve probably all of your questions. And we're going to put the liability on the company that does it. If they go forward, that's their responsibility.
Okay, so does this article now restrict the selectmen to just put it on the cap? Can they put it on the other part of the property? Because that property also there's other acreage on that property that doesn't over the cap.
Pretty specific, Lauren. It's pretty specific, so you can't change the purpose by putting it on other land.
But he's asking, can we put it on any land that's within the land cap system?
If there's one thing to put it on top of a pollution plume that we also can't ever touch, we don't have to take the risk of them puncturing that cap.
The language says on top of the capped landfill.
Okay, thank you.
Ruben, Attorney Sessler, a question.
Attorney Sessler.
Could we change the wording to say on top of the capped landfill or any other town-owned property?
No, you might be able to say or adjacent areas, but not other town property, because that could be the school property, it could be it could be other property that you have in other parts of the town. But if you said adjacent landfill area, that would probably not change the purpose and would solve the problem. So they could have it on top of the cap or to the side of it, as long as it's in the landfill.
Mr. Carr, would you like a minute to write that? We're going to let Mr. Carr to do an amendment. Would you like to speak, sir, while he...
Question. You might be able to solve the problem.
Could you step up to the speak?
Mike.
Thank you.
Just about have got my mouth in it. The suggestion that occurs to me is simply add to the requirement regarding the lease, that the lease provide that any loss that occurs because of any damage to the cap has to be borne by the lessee. It would seem to me that that would solve the problem that Lauren just brought up and would be consistent with the provisions of the warrant as drafted. Simply throw that out as a thought.
Thank you.
There's going to be a lot more requirements in the lease. That's going to be in the leases. The selectmen are going to require that. They may require them to be bonded to cover any financial losses. Sometimes that happens. It's all something that's going to be negotiated with the company. And that's, the selectmen will have that in the discretion. I don't know that you need that in the warrant article because it's going to happen anyway. So,
If I could just add one more thing to that. A gentleman last night appeared before the Board of Selectmen and gave us more information on solar arrays. So there would be a lot more. One would have to be bonded because with the solar companies that have gone out of business over the last 15 years, it's amazing. So we really want them to be bonded so there would always be a protection there. But there's so much that has to go into this. We just want to see if the town is interested in allowing the selectmen to have a place at the landfill that we could put out solar panels, which would be reimbursed to the town of Alton. There would be income coming back to them eventually. To tell you how much now, we can't because we have not negotiated with any companies. But we cannot use town land for anything like that unless we ask you folks for permission to do it.
Yes.
Kelly Sullivan. I just want to say that I appreciate that the selectmen are looking into this. I also appreciate Mr. Carr bringing up the concern for the cap. And to think that we could work around the cap with an adjacent piece of property, I think is great. And I just appreciate that working together to try to do better for the community is great. And I support the solar panels as long as and I also appreciate Mr. Taylor's point about the lease saying that they need to take care of any damages.
Thank you.
is it okay if I correct your spelling?
Mr. Carr is presenting an amendment, and I'm going to read it all the way through so we all understand it. To see if the town will authorize the selectmen to enter into a maximum 25-year lease agreement with the company for the purpose of allowing the construction and operation of a solar panel array on top of the town's capped landfill located at 61 Hill Road, map 15, lot 87, and adjoining lands, and further to negotiate terms and conditions of said lease. This article does not involve any taxation. I just caught a mistake. It should be landfill, capped landfill and adjoining lands located at 61 Herd Hill Road, not adjacent to Herd Hill Road. Okay, do I have a second on Mr. Carr's motion? Mr. Mark Diekoff, do I have a second? Michelle Glidden. Do I have any discussion on the amendment to Article 27? Okay, hearing and seeing, did you have discussion?
Jeremy Maines, Bay Hill Road. So say the solar array doesn't go on the cap.
I think that microphone just went out.
Did it, or did I pull away?
There we go.
I'm here. The solar array does, question for the selectmen, the solar array doesn't go on the cap, or it does go on the cap. When is the projected solar array discussion? Is this something for 2020? Is this something for 2021? Or are we just in the beginning stages of it? So I guess I'm asking, if we change the property location, is that going to move the date of the start date on this process? Because we have to come up with a whole other property to put this on.
Would one of the selectmen like to answer that?
At this point, we have not seeked proposals from any solar array companies. So at this point, it's just preliminary effects is to get town permission from the taxpayers to allow us to enter into looking at proposals and also using town land. So right now, there's no plans that have been submitted. All we're doing is asking the folks from there. Then the selectmen at the next meeting, I can't speak for the other four, but I would request that we seek proposals. Before any proposals, we'd meet with our town attorney to see what we should be getting into, New Hampshire DES to see what we should be also looking at. Then from there, the process would start on proposals, then we'd have to look at them.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the amendment to Article 27? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment to Article 27, please raise your cards. All those opposed? The amendment to Article 27 has passed. Is there any further discussion on Article 27 with the amendment? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 27. Can you guys hear me? Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Mr. Markland. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 27, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 27 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 28, Master Plan Consulting. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 for the purpose of hiring a master plan consultant who specializes in municipal master plan guidance, who will work with the planning board and staff to assist and address the master plan needs and processes in the town of Alton. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7(6) and will not lapse until the master plan consulting services are completed or by December 31st, 2024, whichever is sooner. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote required. Who moves the article? Mr. McDonald. Who seconds it? Ms. Shapley. Who will speak to it? Mr. La Rochelle.
The master plan consultant would provide assistance to the planning board in how to proceed in identifying the demographics, engaging the community in the master plan process. The goal is to identify the appropriate demographics and assign those demographics into the master plan. The master plan is a flexible plan in which evolves and changes year to year. The master plan forms the basis for all decisions made by the planning board, its committees, and the zoning board of adjustments. This will help organize our goals for the town of Alton and the future of the town of Alton and help the planning board immensely.
Is there any discussion on Article 28?
Warren Carr. This master plan, I've heard what you know, it's supposed to be, we're supposed to have this and all, but,
I think we have a problem with the mic down here, because they are right on the mic.
Pull it down a
I was wondering if we could switch the mics. Oh, would you mind trying talking into it again? I've got the technicians up there.
Hold it down.
Just pull it down a little bit.
want to have it?
There you go.
I asked about this master plan. I was told I could go online and find out about it. On the website is 67 pages in this master plan that we currently are under. 8 of them were blank, 2 are maps of the town, et cetera, et cetera. It came down to 53 pages. And 5 of those pages were the history of Alton. So we're paying for $25,000 for this person just to start this. I then researched a little more. This could go up to another $75,000. This is just the first start of this. So I hope people will go on the website, the planning department's website on the Town of Alton website, and read it before they vote for this. And also, partway down what Paul just read, it said, the master plan is a flexible plan which evolves and changes year to year. So I'm a little confused about that. It sounds like the planning board can this year ignore it, and next year we have to abide by it. So I don't know. I don't know why this master plan is such a requirement, I guess. And if people would look at the first article, very first article, on that the planning board committed, has presented, you cannot understand what it says. Luckily, I went to one of their meetings. What it's saying is it's going to change the dwelling units from 5 to 6, and they're going to add townhouses.
We're just going to stick to the article. We can't go back to...
I know, but if people will read that, maybe they'll understand my concerns.
Okay.
What we have in place now does not promote this. It's including the densities, and that's one of in our plan that is against including densities like that. So it seems like we're getting these warrant articles from the planning board that don't follow what's on the master plan anyway. So those are my concerns. I hope people will look at this before they vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on Article 28?
I will say I was one of the biggest advocates for this, being on the budget committee and also being on the CIP committee for my first year. We found ourselves sometimes with more questions than we were able to provide answers, specifically in the direction that the town is going, specifically in relation to buildings that the town has and what the next step is for a lot of these buildings. You'll notice that in these CIP warrants, there aren't any for new buildings. There's a lot of aging buildings in town, and we need to identify what the next step is. When boards change and people come in and come out, a lot of that information can sometimes get lost. The master plan will hopefully provide a working document, I think is probably a better term for that, Mr. Carr, so that as the town evolves and maybe some perspectives change through meetings and whatnot with the general public, we can kind of alter the plan to best fit moving forward. So I'm a huge advocate for this. Hopefully it will provide some consistency moving forward, specifically, again, in the way of town buildings. But there's also some consideration for potentially some kind of rec center. And there was a subcommittee set up to kind of handle that. But again, there's no funding behind it. So we really need to identify where the town is going so that we can adequately plan to get there rather than putting forth large multi-million-dollar articles or anything like that in any one given year. So again, the theory is to plan ahead for these large expenses.
Again, Kelly Sullivan. So I tend to agree with the consultant to provide some continuity. I worked very hard on the community profile for the town of Alton, and that was to engage the Alton community at large and get as much feedback as possible towards this master plan. So I have a question. If the consultant comes on, are you still, I know they're going to try to engage the community, I would assume, in some way, continuing forward.
So the consultant, in a sense, is only going to help us lay the foundation for this moving forward. Much like Mr. Carr said, this could be several $1,000s more in actually constructing the plan. What it really comes down to is community involvement.
Right.
The more folks we have involved and engaged from the community, the less it will essentially cost us over the long term.
So, okay. So do you have, or is that the plan you're going to work with the consultant on how to engage the community?
Correct.
Alton has an epidemic, I call it, of lack of participation in a lot of things, as we can see by the deliberative session. And I do think, I feel very strongly towards the master plan and getting as many people's opinion as possible. We are a community. And while some needs are greater than others, we are all neighbors. So I really urge people to come out and speak and try to work together. And this is the perfect opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I can't help myself. I'm Julie Brown. I live on Railroad Avenue. I've been here for 3 years now, but 7th generation here in the lake. And I would urge people who are curious about it to look to our neighbors. I happen to work in Wolfboro, and Wolfboro has been working really hard on their master plan, and the community's been highly involved. And if you have questions about it, talk to our friends next door, because I think it's done wonders for their community engagement and for input, and it's been a really positive pro-community process. So I really support this, and I think that we should be working to look to the future of what Alton should look like. Although I do agree with you, sir, that some of the zoning things that are in these articles are disturbing. But again, we need to have conversations.
Thank you. Mr. Carr.
Well, I'd ask Pat, have you read the master plan? Okay, we know.
This is Ms. Moderator. Would you mind if I address that?
So, well, again, I want to point out, please read it before you vote on this. I'm not against the public input, but we're not following this. These ordinances, last year, 2 years ago, the planning board proposed going from 150-foot frontages around the lake that don't touch the water to 50. That's definitely against the master plan. So again, are we going to follow this master plan, or is this just fluff? If we're not following it, why are we putting the money into it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to follow up real quick, we've looked at the master plan that's currently in place and realized that it is significantly out of date and needs revision.
Yes.
Hi, Andy McLeod. How is this master plan and a possible master plan consultant separated out from the actual town plan?
Would somebody from the select board like to answer that?
Repeat the question.
Would you repeat the
How is the existence of a master plan consultant separated out from the town planner that we have? Why is the town planner not driving the master plan?
Virgil, would you like to answer that, because you're on the planning board? The planning board and you folks are the ones that discussed this and brought it forward to us.
Well, the consultant, that's what he does, sets up these master plans and gets it going in the right direction stuff. Now, they've tried over the years to get this going and stuff, and they can't seem to get it up and going. The consultant, like he did in Wolfboro, set it up, and it wasn't a lot of money, and got a lot of community involvement into it to get that done. And that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, so it sounds like you have a particular person in mind who has performed well.
Well, we haven't put it out yet, but we know what he's done. I've asked him a lot of questions and stuff.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Bob Regan, I'm on the CIP committee. We were really at a loss on a number of discussions that we had because they frankly were not addressed in the current master plan. Current master plan came out in 2005, and it's way out of date. And the hope of getting this consultant on board is to get us, as Virgil said, off the ground and running. And we don't expect it to be a complete effort, but he will give us enough guidance and a foundation that we can carry on and get it done.
Thank you.
Mark Northwood just brought up a good issue for me. We used to belong to the Lakes Region Planning Commission. We got out of that. They probably could have done this work for the cost of what we spent $7,000 for that organization. So perhaps we should reconsider that instead of $25,000. Thank you.
Hunter Taylor again. In a prior incarnation, I headed a land use board in another state and was head of the board at a time when we redid the master plan. And I can tell you that the ordinances of that town were desperately in need of a new master plan. And one of the things that the council did following the master plan was to redo a lot of the ordinances. I mean, one of the things that you can see when you need a new master plan is when your practices are not complying with your old master plan. My suspicion is we've got an old master plan that is out of date. And one of the values of doing a new master plan, you start planning for the future. And you've got an overall scheme for where you want to be headed. When people come before the board and want a variance, variances mean you're departing from the ordinances. But the question is your departure consistent with the master plan? If it is consistent with the master plan, that's the time that the variance should be granted. I mean, it seems to me, and let me add, I'm not a big spender, but $25,000 is a good bit less than the town that I was in paid for the consultant that they used for the creation of their new master plan. So this looks like to me that it's a much needed addition to our planning, and I would urge support for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on Article 28?
Raymond Howard. I'm going to suggest that we table this for this year. There's a lot of legislation in this House session that pertain to what the state wants to kind of ram down communities' throats as far as creating opportunity zones, workforce housing. I think it would behoove the town to just sit back for a year, see how this all unfolds, and where the state is going to try to lead the towns and make decisions for the towns on their planning. So I don't know if a proper motion to table or a motion to table is proper at this point. Or?
We can't table it because it's already an article prepared for the ballot. So
okay. Well, I would just
cannot
suggest to the voters that there could be a lot of major changes coming down the road.
Okay.
And,
the only way you could change that, Mr. Howard, is you'd have to make a motion to fund it at $1.
Yeah, to be funded. Okay.
If you wanted to.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Yes.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle O'Toole, and I think we need the master plan. I think we're going to save tax dollars in the long run if we do get it planned. Right now, we have all this money we want to save for all these people and all these departments and the town, and we can't do it if we don't have a master plan. it's a lot easier. That's all.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on Article 28?
Sorry, Kelly Sullivan again. Just into what Mr. Howe was saying about tabling it for a year. I believe that our last master plan was 2005. Usually a master plan is every 10 years, so we're already overdue. And we don't know like what the timetable is for the state to come down. So I feel to table it or even to contemplate that is just a disservice to the town at this point. And I will again urge community output. If you have something to say, the master plan, and when they ask questions and ask for community, you need to speak up then. That is when your voice is heard the most.
Stanley Moulton. I'd like to move the question. Any second on that?
A motion has been made and seconded to move the article. All those in favor, please raise your cards. All those opposed? I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 28.
So moved.
Mr. Levitt. Seconded. Mr. Markland. May I ask who moved the motion for that? Who seconded the motion? Mark. Sorry, thank you. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 28, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 28 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 29, Town Hall Building Improvements Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $14,000 to be added to the Town Hall Building Improvements Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 2011. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0, recommended by the CIP Committee, majority vote required. Who moves the article? Ms. Shapley. Who seconds? Mr. Whitman. Who will speak to it? Mr. La Rochelle.
These funds will be used for improvements to the town hall building and property. Funds are being sought for is a sprinkler system for the town hall. Fire safety codes for occupancy limits the upstairs meeting rooms as well as the hallways and the building exits. So it's time we consider a sprinkler system.
Is there any discussion on Article 29? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 29. Ms. Shapley. Mr. O'Brien seconds that. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 29, please raise your cards. Opposed? Article 29 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 30, Town Hall second floor lift. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the purpose of replacing the first floor lift, which provides access to the second floor of the town hall. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7, and will not lapse until the lift replacement is completed or by December 31st, 2024, whichever is sooner. This sum is to come from unassigned fund balance. No amount to be raised from taxation. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-1. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. Whitman. Who seconds? Mr. La Rochelle, who will speak to the article? Ms. Shapley.
The current lift at the town hall is 30 years old, and the company has advised us that they are no longer making parts to repair it. It works sporadically, and although the employees on the second floor do try to make reasonable accommodations for anyone who needs to get to the second floor, once this lift is no longer able to be repaired, we will be out of compliance with ADA requirements. The cost of a new lift is $50,000. We'll have a lifespan of approximately 25 years. So we're looking to put this money away to ensure that we are never out of compliance and that all of the townspeople can get the services they require without any difficulty at the town hall.
Is there any discussion on Article 30? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 30. Ms. Shapley, who seconds that?
Second.
Mr. Levitt. All those in favor of restricting Article 30, please raise your cards. Opposed? Article 30 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 31, Internet Technology Capital Reserve Fund. See if the town will vote to establish an IT Capital Reserve Fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of funding larger scale IT needs and projects. This would include system upgrades, new hardware equipment, servers, computer and network software, GIS, security systems, audio, video systems, and emergencies. Further, to raise and appropriate $6,346 to be placed in this fund. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Still La Rochelle. Who seconds? Mr. Wentworth. Who will speak to it? Ms. Shapley.
This money is to establish a fund so that we can keep up with the IT needs of the town. Our IT director has done an amazing job with bringing us to the current standards. However, those needs are ever-changing and evolving, and we don't want to be in a position to not be able to keep up with them.
Is there any discussion on Article 31? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 31. Mr. Levitt, seconded. Mr. McDonald. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 31, please raise your cards. Opposed? Article 31 is restricted regarding reconsideration. If it's okay, would everyone mind if we took a quick 5-minute break? 5 minutes, please? Thank you.
Ask the townspeople. They're the ones.
Would the townspeople mind if we took a 5-minute break? Thank you. Seated, I would like to do a little shout out to 3 individuals. They were here Saturday. They were here today. They're responsible for the fact that you can all hear us up here. They have been wiring, taping, moving. At every little request, they have jumped to try to help, whether it had to do with microphones or audio or whatnot. I apologize if I get your names wrong. They're up there. Their names are Alton Gelly. There he is. Audrey Yates. Audrey, there you are. And Robbie Colburn. I would like to thank you all very, very much.
Twice.
Thank you. All right, we will head on to Article 32. GIS Geographical Information System expense. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $80,000 for the purpose of installing the first phase of a GIS system for utilization by all town departments. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7,6 and will not lapse until the first phase is completed or by December 31st, 2024. Whichever is sooner. This sum to come from unassigned fund balance. No amount to be raised from taxation. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Who moves the article? Mr. Wentworth. Who seconds it? Ms. Shapley. Who will speak to it? Ms. Shapley.
I'll speak to it if anybody has any questions on it. Do we need an explanation? Yes? Okay. The Geographic Information System is an overlay mapping system. The fund supports the town in its efforts to produce and utilize a working GIS system in a phased approach. GIS is a computer-based system used to capture, analyze, manipulate, and present geographic and spatial data. A tool like GIS is used in most towns in New Hampshire to answer complex questions and automate essential tasks associated with geographic information. The first phase of production involves digitizing our tax maps. For years, these maps have been edited via image editing software, a deprecated method that by 2021 will no longer be supported by the town's current mapping vendor. Once these maps are inevitably digitized for use in GIS, the initial tax map layer can be built off of to create additional layers for use by taxpayers, town departments, and third parties seeking accurate geographical information associated with the town.
Is there any discussion on Article 32?
I have a couple questions.
You just state your name.
Raymond Howard.
Thank you.
Is this like a topographical map?
Yes.
I think we already have topographical maps. The other question is,
I'm going to ask the IT director to come down and speak to that.
all right, the other question is, it says 80,000 for the first phase. What's the total cost of this project?
I'll defer to Josh Monaco, our IT director.
You have the floor.
My name's Josh Monaco. I am the IT director for the town of Alton. GIS stands for Geographic Information System. Basically what it is, it's a way for the town to utilize a image of the map of Alton and then overlay data on top of it. For example, we could start by overlaying tax maps over imagery of the town. That's typically the first step that most towns take. To answer your question about topographical maps, we could produce a topographical map with this system as a layer. However, most towns don't pursue that. They pursue other things like mapping out water lines for the town, mapping out tax maps for the town, and other pertinent layers for departments, department use, and then also use for the public in general.
Okay, and the cost, the total cost of it?
So the first phase of this, I have reached out to 2 different companies because most of this work in terms of digitizing tax maps can't be done in-house. The amount up front that we would need is $80,000 in order to digitize, and that would be the first step in the process. I would recommend, after moving forward with after doing the digitization, to continue with $80,000 to produce layers over a GIS system.
And one more question. Will you be able to produce Mylar copies for the purpose of registering, like lots and stuff like that?
To my knowledge, CAI, who is our current vendor, has those copies. I don't think the town would produce those in-house. However, we could reach out to them and potentially get copies of that information.
So I don't really see any advantage to the taxpayers outside of, it's probably an advantage to the water company or the electric companies for where their underground systems might be, or gas company.
Hey, I'm Julie Brown. I would like to speak in favor of the GIS adaptation. Having worked at National Geographic and having worked for the town of environmental organization for the town of Wolfboro, using the tax maps on a daily basis for my job is imperative, and being able to access property lines, seeing what's happening with the town, and also for all of these zoning decisions, for environmental decisions. If you have those layers built in that you can find quickly, it modernizes our town and makes it so we can make informed decisions about things like our what's happening with wetlands, or looking at whatever's happening with the way water's flowing through a property. Without this information being available, it lessens our decision-making capabilities. So I fully support at least getting our tax maps online. We're very, very far behind the rest of the state, so. Thank you.
Just to speak as a department head, one of the things we looked at, this GIS system has been talked about for 15 years. It got a long time ago we tried to bring it in and keep bringing it in. What this thing is going to do is give informed decisions to the taxpayer of what your infrastructure is out there also. I can do overlayments on every culvert in town. That's a responsibility of the town of Alton. I can tell you what they cost. I can tell you, we got $42 million in culverts there. I can name those culverts. I can show it to you on a map. And we put $4,000 a year in for maintenance. Only an example. Now, is that the exact numbers? I don't know, but I can show you all the signs in the town of Alton. We have a liability for all those signs. Give you an example, Jesus Valley Road gets stolen 3 times a year. I don't know why, but everybody likes it. But what it does is when you come in, when we originally looked at this and they came in and informed us about this, what you have right now is straight line diagrams. In other words, it's 132 feet that way. Well, guess what? That's not your property the way the crow flies. What if there's a mountain in between? You only have 132 feet. It may be the top of it, not the other side of it. That's another thing that the GIS does. Besides, every department in town could utilize this. I'll give you one more example of the great thing about that. I'm on 11D, got called out in the middle of the night. We got floods. We got snow. We got floods. It's running through the front door of Mr. Shibley's house and out his cellar door. We get there with backhoes and everything and start opening up all the ditch lines. Fire department's there trying to pump it all out and block it. As I'm getting ready to leave, one of the older individuals that we had on the crew said, I think there's a culvert right there. We went over in the snowbank, and sure enough, took us 2 seconds. We opened up the culvert, and it flowed free. All the water came out of Mr. Shibley's house. We had GIS in at that time. We could pull up the overlayment, and it would show us everything on site. And something that we spent 4.5, 5 hours trying to do could have taken 20 minutes. That's what GIS does. But it shows the taxpayer of everything that's there. And these overlayments, as being discussed by Josh, we need them. It helps everybody. It shows everybody. And this goes back to the master plan as well, because we're going to show you what the infrastructure of the town is all about. How many bridges we own? What's the cost of those bridges? How many box culverts do we have? How many culverts we got in the ground? What is the liability of the town of Alton that sits out there today? How many roads are paved? Where does it stop? When were they built? All that becomes part of GIS. And it does nothing but help the taxpayer when they ask something to be well informed. Hope you talk in favor of this. Thank you.
I have one more point to drive home. CAI, who is our current mapping vendor, has expressed to us in a formal letter that the mapping that they have for us is outdated. And really, whether we like it or not, they are going to be converting that to digital mapping, editing it in a sense, in their own GIS-based system. So the wheel is already turning, and they are moving us into GIS. It's our choice at this point whether or not we're going to keep that wheel moving and be progressive about things, or just kind of wait until it happens anyway.
Is there any other discussion for Article 32? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 32. Ms. Shapley, second. Mr. McDonald. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 32, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 32 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 33, Alton Water Works, Water Transmission Line Extension Capital Reserve Fund, discontinuance. To see if the town will vote to discontinue the Alton Water Works Water Transmission Line Extension Capital Reserve Fund created in 1997. Said funds with accumulated interest to date of withdrawal estimated to be approximately $25,000 plus any additional accumulated interest are to be transferred to the general fund. This article is contingent upon Article 35 passing. No impact on the tax rate. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, and a majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. McDonald. Who seconds it? Ms. Shapley. Who will speak to it? Mr. Wentworth.
When the Board of Selectmen took over the water department last year by the town vote, there was quite a few capital reserve funds that were limited to specific jobs. It's talking with the superintendent and everything. We do not have any plans to extend water lines anywhere, so these funds are limited to just that. So what we have to do by DRA regulations, any funds now that are regulated by the water department but overseen by the selectmen have to be discontinued, put into the general fund. Then they can come out of the general fund next year and be put into the water, as you see on Article 35, the Water Main Expense Capital Reserve Fund. Then that money could be used on anything that has to do with the water main or for service supplies going into homes, businesses. But right now, we're limited on these next few articles at what we can use them on. And there are no plans right now for those funds for that. So we're asking you folks to allow us to take those funds, put them into the general fund. Next year, we will come back, remove them from the general fund and put it into the Article 35 if created at ballot. No motion needed for the word changes listed above. DRA says to explain the change to the voters at the deliberative session. And basically the way Article 33 is written is the way it's going to be on the ballot. They put into the general fund.
When the article was originally written, we thought we could transfer the funds directly into the new capital reserve fund that was being created in Article 35. DRA disapproved the warrant article as we wrote it initially and said that we had to change it and have the funds go into the general fund first, then come out of the general fund when we created capital reserve fund under Article 35. They said that we did not need to make a motion to amend. We merely had to change the language, but we had to explain it to the voters at the time that we did it. So that's the explanation. That's why the original warrant article says Water Main Extension Capital Reserve Fund, and now it says general fund, and that's the reason why it says general fund. It's a procedural matter of where the money goes, and then it's got to come out and go to the next article.
Is there any discussion on Article 33? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 33. Mr. McDonald. Second. Mr. Holt. I'm on the board. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article number 33, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 33 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 34, see if the town will vote to discontinue, Article 34, Alton Waterworks Water Transmission Line Replacement Capital Reserve Fund discontinuance. To see if the town will vote to discontinue the Alton Waterworks Water Transmission Line Replacement Capital Reserve Fund created in 1997. Said funds with accumulated interest to date of withdrawal estimated to be approximately $30,000 plus any additional accumulated interest are to be transferred to the general fund. This article is contingent upon Article number 35 passing. No impact on the tax rate. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, and a majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Ms. Shapley. Who seconds? Mr. Whitman. Who will speak to it? Mr. Wentworth.
This is continuing on from 33, as I will read. The original motion read to be Water Main Expense Capital Reserve Fund. DRA disallowed that, and we had to change it to the general fund. The problem with this one, the capital reserve, it can only be used for service lines going into homes and businesses. So 30,000 has been sitting in there now for quite a few years, and we haven't had to use that because in the regular operating budget, there is money already for those purposes. So this would be another housekeeping line to get it to the general fund to go into the water main expense general fund.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on Article 34?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Because the change has been made that these funds are going into the general fund as opposed to the fund in Article 35 that's being created, do Article 33 and 34, are those articles indeed contingent on Article 35?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, because even though if that article is not passed and that fund is not created, the funds could still be in the general fund.
No, they'd have to stay in their reserve fund as they are now.
Okay. Great.
According to the town attorney and DRA.
Is there any further discussion on Article 34? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 34. Mr. O'Brien, second. Mr. Wentworth. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 34, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 34 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 35, Water Main Expense Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to establish a Water Main Expense Capital Reserve Fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of paying for expenses incurred, during any creation of a water main or main to stop the installation, repair, upgrade, removal, location change, and replacement of same, and to raise and appropriate $1 to be placed into this fund. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. No impact on the tax rate, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. Whitman. Who seconds? Mr. La Rochelle. Who will speak to it? Mr. Wentworth.
This is where 33, 34 would go into, if approved at town meeting. This would allow the waterworks to be able to use any of this money for anything within the water main section of the town. And I guess, and that's big, no. So town attorney's telling me, go on. The motion needed to amend per DRA. DRA said to explain the change to the voters at deliberative session. Originally, we wanted to put 55,000 plus accumulated interest to deposit into said fund. Is that the way I'm correct? I'm reading that.
The two funds that are discontinued equal $55,000, I believe. They went into the general fund. They're going to go into an unassigned fund balance when they go into the general fund. somebody has to amend this motion to change the $1 to $55,000 plus accumulated interest to be deposited in the fund, the funds to come from the unassigned fund balance. Somebody has to make that motion. That's how we get the money into this new fund. That makes any sense?
Yeah, I will. I'll give right there.
So he's already made.
Madam Moderator, I move to change the warrant article to read to see if the town will vote to establish a water main expense capital reserve fund under provision RSA 35:1 for the purpose of paying for the expenses incurred during any creation of a water main or main to stop the installation, repair, upgrade, removal, location change, and replacement of same, and to raise and appropriate $55,000 plus accumulated interest to deposit into this fund, with said funds to come from the unassigned fund balance, further to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. No impact on the tax rate. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Do I have a second?
Who will second the amendment? Ms. Shapley. Who would like to speak to the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment to Article 35, please raise your cards. All those opposed? The amendment to Article 35 is passed. Is there any further discussion on Article 35? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 35. Mr. Whitman, a second? Mr. La Rochelle? All those in favor of I'm getting tongue-tied now. Restricting reconsideration of Article 35, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 35 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 36, Water Bandstand Maintenance and Repair Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,500 to be added to the Water Bandstand Maintenance and Repair Capital Reserve Fund previously established in 2014. Recommended by the Board of Selection, 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 6-0. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. La Rochelle. Who seconds it? Mr. Wentworth. Who will speak to it? Mr. La Rochelle.
During the winter of 2019, there was a significant underwater damage done to the cribbing support timbers from lake ice movement. The Water Bandstand Committee and the Board of Selectmen felt it appropriate and necessary to make the cribbing repairs in 2020. An estimate has been obtained from the local marine repair company for approximately $4,380.31. Due to the unforeseen unknown, the amount has been rounded to $5,500. Basically, the structure is on two large cribs that are separated by 8 feet in between. Each crib is 8 foot by 20 foot long. During the ice out of 2019, severe ice came in and actually took out some of the timbers on the lower portion, the lower 2 or 3 rows from the deck itself, and just splintered it. And it's maintaining okay the way it is of the repairs that we've done, but we have to put this out and have a barge come in order to do the necessary repairs to basically pluck out those timbers and put in the new ones. So that's why we have a little bit of buffer there in case they need a little bit more material.
Is there any discussion on Article 36? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 36. Mr. O'Brien, a second? Mr. Markland. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 36, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 36 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 37, Bay Dock Work. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $80,400 for the purpose of replacing the existing dock attached to the restaurant known as Shibley's on the Pier, to allow the public to dock at the new dock, add 1 or 2 boat fingers as space will allow to the new dock area, fix the eroding banking behind the dock, and attach this new dock to the public town docks using an extension of the existing boardwalk. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7-6 and will not lapse until the repairs and renovations are completed or by December 31st, 2024, whichever is sooner. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. Wentworth. Who seconds it? Ms. McDonald. Who will speak to it? Mr. La Rochelle.
The plan is to remove the existing restaurant dock, or deck, if you will, and underwater support structure. The current dock is in poor condition with valid safety concerns. The dock will be replaced with a new dock, pilings, and everything required with the pilings and girders. This new dock will allow Shibley's at the Pier Incorporated to have a continued access to their basement from the dock and their upper level storage area, which would be the stairs on the side of the building. The public will continue to have access to the restaurant dining deck from the dock if they choose. The existing 10-foot curtilage area around the restaurant will remain as is in the lease with the town. The dock will become town-owned and town-maintained. Shibley's and the Pier Incorporated will be responsible for costs associated with the upkeep and the maintenance of the dock or deck and underwater structure within the 10-foot curtilage area listed in the existing lease. The restaurant owners will no longer be taxed on the entire length of the existing restaurant dock, but only the 10 feet with the curtilage of that dock or deck. The public will be allowed to dock at the restaurant dock for access to either the bay or any of the businesses. The steeply inclined banking beside the restaurant will be repaired using DES-approved erosion control materials such as fill, rocks, plantings, and mesh covering for stabilization of that embankment along either side of the stairway that comes down to that deck. This new dock will then be connected to the town's existing public dock, complete with the extension of the pedestrian boardwalk, thus creating the large public docking area. The additional 1 or 2 fingers will be installed onto the newer end of the structure nearest the restaurant, and a space allows or a dock for larger sized boats that will need to fit into that area in the public docks. By working together with the restaurant owners, Mr. and Mrs. David Shibley, the town and the Shibleys feel this will be a win-win situation for everyone. The results of the renovation will improve the appearance of the area, improve the safety of the existing restaurant dock, and improve the land banking on that site. As we know, there's always cramped dock space. If we can add 2 extra fingers, that'll help alleviate some of the pressure in the town docks. And also, these town docks, from where that deck is now, would add an extra 10 feet to those 1 or 2 fingers that we add on, according to the state, to see which way we can go with that.
Is there any discussion on Article 37?
Warren Cobb. So are we taking over somebody else's dock?
No.
Shibley doesn't own that now, you're saying?
No.
They don't.
According to the lease and the way it's drawn up, they have 10 feet of that dock only. The rest is the town of Alton's, according to their lease and the diagrams that have been put before the Board of Selectmen.
Well, I did a little research here, and I went and got the tax card. And on the tax card, it's definitely that they own it. It's on the first page, dock, 2001, they're being taxed for it. On the second page, it also shows the dock, 1997, 660. The tax back card, they own it. The lease, on the back end of the lease, you'll see a drawing. Again, the tax card that was then placed when this was signed. At the bottom, you'll see the drawing that says it includes water frontage 121 feet. That would include the 11 foot on the right side, left side, the building, the 10 foot, plus the dock again. That shows they own it. And 5/16/01, there was an application with the Department of Environmental Services, filled out by the owner, Pete Shibley, to redo the dock. It's his 3 public records right here that they own the
one
dock.
that you're talking about there, Lauren, just to interrupt you, that's the one where the patrons sit down on the water. That dock was for that permit.
No.
And the paperwork that the Board of Selectmen received and made the decisions on was granted and given to us by the assessing department, and the town assessor highlighted that they have 10 feet on that dock. The rest to the right, going towards the south side of the bay, is owned by the town of Alton.
I have to disagree. These 3 papers show that that's not the case.
Well, the papers we had in our case, though, sir,
Well, you
is
haven't
disapproved,
they
so
haven't
I
done
guess
your
we'll have to
homework.
look at them all together.
Here's the paper from the DES. It has it highlighted. It shows the dock on it. You're taking over private property now to redo this.
Mr. Sessler?
Also, according to Attorney Sessler, the Shibleys also agree that they only have 10 feet of that dock out there.
We met with Mr. Shibley, Selectman LaRochelle and myself and the town administrator, and he agrees that this assessment, he agrees with this plan. So, you can argue through his ownership, but he's not arguing for it. So
sort of like if I have a 56 Chevy in my yard, the town's going to fix it for me. This is taking over private property. I'm opposed to this.
No, sir. I don't agree with you on that.
Well, fine. There's 3 public documents that show it.
Town leases that property.
yeah, he doesn't own any. He doesn't own anything.
Town leases that.
How could he apply to the State Department of Environmental Services, and he said he owned
Maureen,
it?
he owns nothing down there except for the building that's on the ground. The land is all owned by the town of Alton, and they lease it to him.
The land and the structures. That would be the same as telling me now that the cooler doesn't belong to him, or doesn't belong to him.
It's a structure, part of the structure.
Part of the structure.
But the dock that plan is referring to, I believe you'll find out, is where the patrons sit on the water. That is when he filed for a permit, because that's the only thing by the pier has fixed over the years on the water side. The one to the right that we want to fix, that the town stairway goes down to, but it's never been repaired in all these years. That's why it's in such disrepair. It's a liability to the town of Alton.
Have you people looked at that paperwork I'm discussing?
The one you're discussing, I can't say I've seen. The one that the town assessor gave us and outlined within the lease, that's the one we looked at, and that's the one we are going by. And I would say I'm confirmed. What you're looking at, I can't say I have any idea because you've never shown it to me, sir.
Well, it's been available in town hall. Another question I've got for you is there was a paper that was that you people talked about. It showed the cost of this item. It has main project $30,400, Shibley's portion $4,500, additional docks and DES permit cost $5,000. So the $30,400 and the $5,000 comes up to $35,400. You divide that by 54 feet, that's $648.35 a foot. So you're saying he's going to be responsible to 10 foot. 10 times $648 is $6,483 but you're saying he's only going to pay for $4,500?
That was the agreed upon cost between the town attorney and I believe Mr. Rochelle the day they met.
Yes.
33% discount. Okay?
It's just the 10 feet that's coming out from that building, from his building. is
Right.
what
It's
he's
costing you
gonna be responsible
$650 to fix it a foot. And for 10 foot, you're only going to charge $4,500. The numbers don't add up again. Last of all, I just look back 5 years. In 5 years down the bay, we spent $440,000. We've only spent $60 in town. You add this up, it's going to come up to $525,900 that we spent down the bay. We spent $70 in the town in the same time. We're spending $7.50 down to the bay for every dollar we spend to maintain the town. I think it's enough. I'm going to make an amendment to make this $1. It is enough. We're putting in projects down there, enough projects for the last 5 years. This one can wait.
I'm going to step down and talk about that as a personal resident. All right. I'm going to step down if I can. Madam Chair. I can't reach it. Oh.
I got to do the amendment first.
I'll speak against this. Thank you.
Mr. Carr has made a motion on Article 37 to see if the town will change appropriate the sum of $80,400 to $1. So it will read to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1 for the purpose of replacing the existing dock, etc. Do I have a second on the amendment? Is it Joe? Joe McDonald. Okay, is there any discussion on Mr. Carr's amendment to Article 37?
I hope you folks will not agree with this. Mr. Carr is right. The bay gets a lot of money. But unfortunately, if you go down and look at the infrastructure of the bay, the stone walls that are on the west side of the bay right now, they are in bad repair. We've been trying to put money and have those repaired. Unfortunately, the costs keep coming higher than what's there. This dock is a liability. This area that we want to fix is a liability to the town. The other thing that goes along with it, every time soil keeps reaching our Lake Winnipesaukee and our rivers, you have phosphorus levels that go into these bodies of water, which we have a problem now down in New Durham, which is coming this way to Alton, called cyanobacteria. We already have it in Mills Pond here on Route 140 and Ledress Road. We do spend money in the bay. It's an income-driven area. All the citizens in town use it. Those stone walls have been there since I was a kid in town. I'm 58 years old. And I can remember those when I played down there, and the town has never done anything with them. Now they're starting to go in disrepair. This is one step we can go forward. Mr. Carr, when he was a selectman, not too long ago, 3 years, he wanted to take out the old brick walkways, put a stamped concrete walkway in there. So he was part of spending money in the bay too. Now he doesn't want to spend money there.
Mr. Wentworth will speak to just...
I am speaking that. All I'm saying is, when we need the money downtown, we do come downtown and spend it when it's in need. Sidewalks will be done, just as they've been in the bay. So I am asking you, we're not always perfect with every figure we bring before you, but if we're not perfect, we will admit that to you. So I'm speaking as a citizen tonight, not as a member of the board. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes.
Are you speaking as a citizen?
Paul LaRochelle, a citizen. I just wanted to say that the dock itself and that whole area, it's in disrepair now. So if we don't do something with it soon, we're going to have to shut it down from anybody even using it. It's a hazard right now. We intend to connect it, rebuild it, connect it to the existing boardwalk that's there now. That would allow people to be able to come down and from the stairway over towards Moran's Insurance, come down the walkway, walk all the way across, go back up the stairs, come down to their boats. Adding 1 or 2 fingers, that's why there's an adjustment in the price, because we don't know by DES, the state, if we'll be able to put both fingers in there if we have enough room to do so. So it could be only one that we put in, which would adjust that income. So I just can't say enough that this is an important thing. We've got to preserve the bay. This is why people come. This is what people enjoy. They love the bandstands. They love the activity. They love the boats. They come in. They like to sit. They like to watch the boats come in and out of the bay. We have to preserve this. Thank you.
I did support changing the sidewalk. That's maintenance. You're now taking over private property down there at the bay. That's different than maintenance. The only maintenance thing you have in here is the wall. You're adding these other numbers for taking over a piece of private property now.
Not private, it's town-owned.
Let him finish. Don't
Let
interrupt.
There's 3 documents that say it's not.
We lease that property to them.
And he owns the structures.
I'm sorry, you will both speak through the moderator. We're not going to be getting
Ms.
into an
Moderator.
argument. We're going to speak to the article here. We will recess this.
Excuse me, but this is not maintenance anymore. This is taking over property, someone else's property, to fix it up and say, now we own it. It's even in your own thing, your own definition of what is going on here. It says it will now become town property. We are spending money and money and money down there, and the rest of the town.
Stan
Any
Moulton.
further discussion?
I would like to move the question on the amendment.
We've had, Mr. Moulton would like to move the amendment. Do I have a second? Mr. Hickok? All those in favor of moving the amendment? All those opposed? Okay. All those in favor of changing the changing the amendment, appropriate the sum of $80,400 to $1. Please, if you're in favor, please raise your cards. All those opposed? The amendment fails. Back to Article 37. Is there any further discussion on the article? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 37. Mr. Wentworth. Second? Mr. O'Brien. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 37, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 37 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 38, Old Home Week. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 for the purpose of funding Old Home Week events such as band concerts, magic shows, and other forms of activities. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. McDonald. Who seconds? Ms. Shapley. Who will speak to the article? Mr. Whitman.
In the years past, the Committee for Old Home Week received $2,500 a year to fund the activities. Last year, they didn't get the $2,500, and donations came in approximately $1,900 less than what was spent on Home Week. So they've come back this year and asked for $3,000 to make up the difference.
Is there any discussion on Article 38? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 38. Ms. Shapley, seconded. Mr. McDonald. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 38, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 38 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 39, Coffin Brook Road property sale. To see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to sell a parcel of town-owned land located on Coffin Brook Road, map 43, lot 5, known as the old burn dump. Said parcel to be put up for auction, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-1, and a majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Ms. Shapley. Who seconds? Mr. Whitman, who will speak to it? Ms. Shapley.
As the article states, this was the former town dump site. It is approximately 4.62 acres. The property was purchased by the town in 1982 for what is remembered as the town dump. There are no records stating why it was purchased, but those of us who have been in town long enough, understand that that is what this property was for. There is an interest by a nearby landowner in purchasing this, and the selectmen would like to go ahead and sell the parcel publicly at auction with a clear understanding to all who may be interested that there is a strong likelihood that the land is contaminated by unknown contaminants from years' worth of burning and burying, the burned garbage, demolition, furniture, appliances, plastics, and other unknowns. The Department of Environmental Services is listed on their website as an abandoned dump. Water and soil testing would need to be done by the new owner.
Is there any discussion on Article 39? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 39. Virgil McDonald, and seconded by Ms. Shapley. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 39, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 39 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 40, Alton Community Services Nonprofit. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $12,500 for the purpose of supporting the Alton Community Services, which provides a food pantry and assistance programs for fuel, prescriptions, utilities, and housing in close coordination with the Alton Welfare Department. This is a special warrant article recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. Whitman. Who seconds it? Mr. La Rochelle. Who will speak to this article?
Gene Young. May I move to restrict consideration of Articles 40 through 48?
I got myself in trouble once doing that.
Yeah, but I didn't.
Unfortunately. Any discussion on Article 40? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 40. Who moves it? Mr. McDonald. Who will second? Mr. Wentworth. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 40, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 40 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 41, American Red Cross Nonprofit. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,000 for the purpose of supporting the American Red Cross, which provides disaster relief, shelters, basic household necessities, and counseling. This is a special warrant article recommended by the board 5-0, recommended by the budget committee 4-2. Majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. La Rochelle. Who seconds it? Mr. Wentworth. Would anyone like to speak for the article? Is there any discussion on the article? Hearing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 41. Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Markland will second that. And all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 41, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 41 is restricted from reconsideration. Article 42, CAP, Community Action Program Nonprofit. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 for the purpose of supporting the Community Action Program, which provides supplemental food, fuel, utility, transportation, Meals on Wheels, weatherization assistance, and Women, Infants, and Children's Food Assistance Program called WIC. This is a special warrant article recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. Wentworth. Who seconds it? Mr. McDonald. Who will speak to Article 42?
My name is Beth Hayward, and I'm from Community Action Program. And first, we just want to say thank you. We've never made it out to one of these sessions, and Alton has really supported us for the last 25 plus years. The money that you guys give us help us really be able to have an area center that's open 5 days a week for residents in Alton. This year, the residents of Alton received $171,054 worth of services. And we are able to do that because the town helps us and gives us this money. So really, we just really wanted to come down and say thank you to all of you, to all the residents. We really, truly appreciate the funds.
Is there any discussion on Article 42?
Robin, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Which budget committee member voted against?
Is there a budget committee member here that voted against Article 41?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I did.
Thank you.
And the main reason I did is I voted against a few of these. There was no information given to us about anything other than how much money was asked for. Now, if you could have come to our meetings and explained it, what you do, what you've done in the past for the town of Alton, I might add a different opinion. But we received back up here tonight in this booklet, which we did not have at budget time, and I made it clear at budget, during the budget process, of I can't vote for something I don't know where the money goes. Some of these agencies I know. Yours, I knew nothing of, for example.
So we provide a summary of services to you guys every single year by the date that's required. So I'm not sure why you wouldn't have received that. I don't know why this is the first year looking at it. And we'd be happy to come to any meeting. We come to a lot of budget meetings. We go to a lot of select board meetings. We are here to explain. We give that to every single town. We tell you exactly the amount of services, how many people, how many households, and what those services are exactly for. So I apologize you didn't receive that, but the town does get that information by the required time. And it has for at least the last 3 years that I've been in this position.
Thank you. But I did not have it, so that's my reason.
Is there any further discussion on Article 42? Hearing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 42. Ms. Shapley, who will second that? Mr. McDonald. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 42, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 42 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 43, caregivers of Southern Carroll County and Vicinity Incorporated nonprofit. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,500 for the purpose of supporting caregivers of Southern Carroll County and Vicinity Incorporated, which includes Alton, which provides free transportation to handicapped, elderly, and other residents needing assistance with all these services provided by volunteers. This is a special warrant article recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. McDonald. Who seconds it? Ms. Shapley. Who will speak to this article?
Good evening. My name is James Christensen. I live at Alton Mountain Road, and I'm a member of the Caregivers Association. Since 1987, Caregivers has provided emergency transportation for elderly, handicapped, and other persons who need assistance in getting to medical appointments primarily. During the past year, we provided transportation 289 times to people from Alton. That was a 27% increase over the previous year in terms of call. We are a completely volunteer organization. We have a board of directors and we have coordinators who volunteer their time to provide answering services for people who call up seeking assistance, and also making contact with drivers who will pick up individuals, transport them, and then return them home. Out of the 289 persons who were transported last year, those are the folks who came only from Alton, from this area in particular. When I say we're totally volunteer, drivers are volunteer if the drive is less than 50 miles. If it's more than 50 miles, then drivers are paid 45 cents a mile for transportation, for gas costs, and so on and so forth. Last year, the costs that were entailed by drivers from Alton for transporting persons came up to a little bit more than $3,500. We are asking for $2,500 this year, which is a $500 increase from previous years. And that represents 25% increase, while we've had services increased by 27%. I thank you very much for the support that you've given us in the past. And I look forward to being able to continue to work with caregivers servicing this area along with many, many other individuals. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion on Article 43? Hearing and seeing none, I'll take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 43. Mr. O'Brien, a second. Mr. Donald. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 43, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 43 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 44, CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocates Nonprofit. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $500 for the purpose of supporting, is it CASA? Yeah, okay. Court-Appointed Special Advocates, which provides advocacy for abused and neglected children. This is a special warrant article recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Who moves the article? Ms. Shapley. Who seconds the article? Mr. Whitman. Who will speak to this article?
Julie Brown, just a question about this. Is this what CASA actually requested? As a $500 budget item, is that all they requested?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. I was hoping that we would give them more money. CASA does incredible services. I know many volunteers, and I've seen the effects in this town. and I've seen the positive effects. And so, but if they did not ask for more, then I'm not going to ask for amendment.
Is there any other discussion on Article 44? Hearing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 44. Ms. Shapley, do I have a second? Second. Mr. Levitt. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 44, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 44 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 45, Central New Hampshire VNA and Hospice Nonprofit. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $12,000 for the purpose of supporting the Central New Hampshire VNA and Hospice, which is a nonprofit agency that provides health care, hospice care, and maternal child health services. This is a special warrant article recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. Whitman. Who seconds it? Mr. La Rochelle. Speak to this article. Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article number 45. Mr. Wentworth. Second? Mr. Levitt. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 45, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 45 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 46, Child and Family Services of New Hampshire Nonprofit. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,500 for the purpose of supporting the Child and Family Services of New Hampshire. This is a special warrant article recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. La Rochelle. Who seconds the article? Mr. Wentworth. Who will speak to this article? Is there any discussion on the article? Hearing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 46. Mr. Wentworth. Second, Mr. La Rochelle. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 46, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 46 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 47, Lakes Region Mental Health Center Nonprofit. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,750 for the purpose of supporting Lakes Region Mental Health Center, which provides mental health care to area residents, services for children, elders, along with other emergency services. This is a special warrant article recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 4-2. Majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Reuben Wentworth. Who seconds it? Mr. McDonald. Who will speak to this article?
Sydney Shapley. I'm speaking as a supporter of Lakes Region Mental Health and not as a selectman. Lakes Region Mental Health was formerly Genesis Behavioral Health. We are looking for a level funded request, same as last year. In 2019, Lakes Region Mental Health served 98 residents of Alton. Of that, 30 of those individuals utilized emergency services. That resulted in charitable care to Alton residents of $23,057. Without this money, Lakes Region Mental Health will no longer be reimbursed for any of the charitable care that they give to the towns that they support. Again, they gave $23,000 to Alton. We're looking for level funding from last year of $15,000. And it's an amazing organization. They work here in the schools. They work with our professionals. should they need it. I think we all know what kind of a situation we're in the country right now as far as mental health and people's ability to receive care. Their services are really needed, and would ask that you support this article.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on Article 47?
Who voted against this on the budget committee?
I was one of the ones that voted against it, Bob Holt. And the reason was no information. Didn't know anything about.
Okay, and who else?
And I can't vote to expend townspeople's money if I don't know where it's going.
No, I understand that logic. It's just there's a second person who voted against this as well. I think it's going to look bad to the voters. And so I was curious about why the budget committee voted against it. So
I believe the other individual is not here tonight, but I don't have the record in front of me to be able to state accurately.
Is there any other discussion on the article?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the full budget for Lakes Region Community Services was submitted to the town along with an explanation sheet, and the number of people that received services broken down by age and who received emergency services versus services that they referred to Lakes Region Mental Health for.
Madam Moderator, I can just make one clarification. It was submitted to the town, but it was never submitted to the budget committee. Okay, because the warrant articles are in a separate part of the budget. We get the justification from the CIP, but as far as tonight, this is the first time I've seen all of the description for these nonprofits, except for the ones that I know personally. So to back up what the budget committee member is saying, I can understand why he's saying that without having specifics in front of him. I believe he did. And I can't answer him, but I'm pretty sure he'd probably vote for it if he had all the dollar amounts, how it's spent.
Any other discussion on Article 47? Hearing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 47. Mr. Wentworth, do I have a second? Second. Mr. Levitt. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration for Article number 47, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 47 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 48, Life Ministries Incorporated. It's a nonprofit. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 for the purpose of supporting Life Ministries Incorporated, which is a not-for-profit charity that provides food and staples to Alton residents. This is a special warrant article recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Mr. Wentworth. Who seconds it? Ms. Shapley. Who will speak to the article?
I'm Kent Cromwell, President, Life Ministries Food Pantry. We are asking for level funding. We provide 10 meals per person per week at the food pantry. In 2019, we distributed over 198,000 meals. That's a 2% increase over 2018. We helped 103 Alton residents in 2019, 22 under the age of 19 and 33 over the age of 60 years old. These 103 residents came to the pantry 622 times. We distribute over 9,000 meals to these Alton residents in 2019. That's 5% of our total meals. Our food budget is $147,400. We're asking funding for $3,000. That's 2% of our total food budget. Even though Alton contributes to 5% of our total meals distributed, we're only asking for the 2% in funding. I want to thank you for your past support, and
Any discussion on Article 48? Hearing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration on Article number 48. Mr. McDonald, seconded by Mr. Wentworth. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of... Okay. All those opposed? Article 48 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Article 49, New Beginnings Profit, non-profit. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,575 for the purpose of supporting New Beginnings, which provides 24-hour crisis support for domestic sexual assault victims, operates a shelter, and provides counseling. This is a special warrant article. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. A majority vote is required. Who moves the article? Ms. Shapley. Who seconds it? Mr. Whitman. Who will speak to Article 49? Is there any discussion on Article 49? Hearing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 49.
Actually, if I could, nobody's made that motion yet. Every year, we seem to cross this bridge with the nonprofits. There's a lot of questions behind them. There's been talk of consolidating them all into one single article, and we've been told that we physically can't do that or legally can't do that. Moving forward, I'd like to see, because there's certainly a lot of justification that could be done behind the scenes with these, and there was a little bit of a disconnect with the Budget Committee this year, and that is potentially going to have an effect on our vote. I'm going to suggest again this year that we have perhaps the welfare officer of the town add these into her budget. So that way one person can justify them. We're not talking about a crazy amount of money here. It sounds like every single one was very well justified, and we are certainly getting our values worth out of them. And I just feel it would benefit the taxpayers all that much more by not having so many warrant articles to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on Article 49? Hearing and seeing none, I will take a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 49. Let's put Mr. Markland on the books, and we'll put Mr. O'Brien for seconding it. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 49, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Article 49 is restricted regarding reconsideration. Do we have anybody would you like to have any closing remarks?
So we do have one thing.
Sure.
Has nothing to do with tonight's meeting, but I did want to tell you folks, tomorrow night at New Durham School at 7 o'clock, there's an EPA public hearing with the Cyanobacteria Committee, which has been trying to fight with the EPA to lower the phosphorus levels in the Miramichi River, which does affect us down the road and will affect our property values. So you have nothing else to do like you did tonight. Come on down at 7 o'clock tomorrow night for an evening with the EPA. Thank you.
I will take a nomination to close the meeting. Mr. Wentworth, I need a second.
I will second.
From Mr. Levitt. All those in favor of closing the meetings this evening?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Anybody else want to try to get
I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you, everyone. Have a good